At this moment, the world has entered the Ice Age. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176. It is 1 o'clock midnight on February 1st in the third year of the Ice Age. Only an hour has passed since the moment of final extinction. This hour can be said to be like years. The continuous earthquake started from the north and south glaciers. The plates moved, covering the ice layers of the north and south glaciers, the endless white snow, with a click, visible to the naked eye. A crack broke apart, and then, the second, the third, and the fourth day, countless gaps burst open. If anyone can continue to witness this scene, they will be trembling. The bit effect blockbuster is also shocking. The reality is happening in front of you. The complete ice surface is like a broken mirror. Bang bang bang. I don't know how much it spreads, and I can't see the end at a glance, and it breaks. Still going on, as the extreme cold swept across, the entire ice surface was frozen again, but the continuous earthquake caused the plate to move and rupture again, spreading one after another, and repeating this. I don't know when it will stop, and under the ice, it was another scene. Waves of seawater churned, and the earth turned upside down under the ice. The area of the glaciers is so large that it occupies both ends of the earth and covers a wide area. As a place for human exploration, there used to be many animals, such as polar bears, penguins, and a series of animals such as seals. No matter whether it is the environment or the air, no humans have set foot in it too much. Everything is like a fairyland, which is desirable and rich in resources. It also makes many people yearn to hunt rare animals at all costs. And once under this ice surface, there were many fishes that were very rare. After being eliminated one after another, they adapted to the temperature of the northern and southern glaciers and lived freely under this ice surface. A link in the ecosystem of the food chain. In the food chain, everyone has natural enemies. Just like the popular principle of big fish eating small fish and small fish eating dried shrimps, they multiply endlessly. I don't know how long they live until one day, a disaster that can wipe out all mankind, coming at the same time, also began to destroy the food chain. The extreme cold swept through, surpassing the temperature that various animals of the north and south glaciers can adapt. They were frozen into ice sculptures and stood on the ice surface. The upright movements of the polar bears were frozen, and groups of penguins gathered into a group, and soon the seals, which were buried by the snowstorm and swimming in the water, were frozen underwater. Before they could climb ashore, only half of their body was exposed. In the water, the free fishes slowly stopped swimming. The living animals were wailing and wailing. As the disaster continued, the lack of oxygen directly led to the complete collapse of the entire ecosystem. Today, there are almost no living creatures in the northern and southern glaciers, and the disaster continues. The earthquake upset the entire bottom of the water, and the creatures that only live in the water are destroyed by another wave. Unspeakable horror, trembling, stirring the north and south glaciers. At the top of the food chain is not humans, it is the Ice Age. The disaster of the Ice Age will reshuffle the world. The consequences of the global earthquake are not just the north and south glaciers, but also the beginning. Desert countries, eagle countries, rose countries, etc. have all suffered wave after wave of destruction. Some of these countries have been completely destroyed, buried under the glacier. Some populations have declined sharply, and they are still struggling. Disaster strikes, and no country has been spared. In the east, the super tsunami caused by the earthquake has arrived. Bang bang bang. The sound shook the sky, and the slap on the steel wall of the eastern continent made a dull sound, just like the roar of the king of the mountain forest, resounding around the steel wall of the whole mainland barrier, resounding in the air. It was very shocking. This scene was filmed by Dongfang satellite, and broadcasted on the internet, on TV, etc., and everyone's breathing is tightening. People from different countries and different mentalities. Western people are pessimistic and desperate, and believe that the East is fundamental. They can't resist, and the East is so excited, because they witnessed their own country's super project, and are doing their best to fight the super tsunami. As time goes by, they are like giants on the eastern coastline. Standing in front of the super tsunami point between the sky and the earth, the wind and clouds are changing, and the whole world is covered in darkness. Earthquakes, tsunamis, and extreme cold swept the entire earth. Point bang bang bang. The first barrier built with the power of the whole country, the steel wall of the Eastern Continental Barrier, withstood waves of super tsunamis. At the same time, the sea crossing bridge that spans the entire Xihai Sea, the West Sea and the North Sea, is also suffering. With the impact of the super tsunami, the construction of the cross-sea bridge is more spectacular and shocking than the steel wall of the Continental Barrier. The materials used for construction are even higher than the steel wall of the Continental Barrier, because the impact of the cross-sea bridge is different from the impact area of the steel wall of the Continental Barrier. This point is also taken into account, but he still ordered the construction of the cross-sea bridge point across the three oceans. It can be called a historical super project, a super feat. If this wave of disaster subsides, the three sea areas will be unimpeded and become an important passage for people in the east. Only one passage is needed for vehicles to travel, which will also provide convenience for other disasters in the future. Point in the process of fighting against disasters, time is life, and one more minute will give you more life. Point bang bang bang. The sea crossing bridge that can't see the end at a glance. I don't know how many miles it has spread. Countless ocean currents set off high and huge waves, rushing to the sea crossing bridge, constantly beating and impacting. Point when the impact of the tsunami reached its apex and slammed on the sea crossing bridge, people in the West felt that the sea crossing bridge would definitely not be able to hold it, breaking directly and falling into the tsunami. But the next scene surprised all of them. Point the cross-sea bridge is nothing but a dull sound. The black texture is very hard and the complex structure supports the cross-sea bridge. In the tsunami and the extreme cold, it is unyielding and steadily spans the three seas from the Xihai to the Bihai. They are all suffering from waves of tsunami. Point this is really shocking. Point you must know that this sea crossing bridge is not tens of miles, hundreds of miles, but it spans three large seas, and there is not a single break. The Eastern project is really terrifying. Point the rest of the West fell into silence. Point in the East, everyone cheered, and they cheered excitedly, because the super project they built with all their efforts across the country has finally been verified, and their project has passed. Point when Ying Ziyue was also watching the live broadcast. When he saw the sea crossing bridge led by him, after resisting the impact of the super tsunami, a smile slowly appeared on his face. Point with his handsome face and wise eyes, countless plans are brewing in his mind. Point winning the midnight plan, he is confident, from his ancestor Yan Huang, giving confidence. Point behind Win Midnight, Zhao Guofeng and others looked at his back, moving from live broadcast to Win Midnight. Their eyes did not hide their admiration, respect, and so on. Point it is not an exaggeration to say that Winning Midnight is a guardian of the East. He has successfully guarded this eastern continent. Point this young man named Win Midnight did what they couldn't do in their entire life. The cross-sea bridge, the mainland steel barrier, the snow country train, and other super projects were all created by his hands. They would never go. Although the process of thinking about super projects is difficult, the waves of disasters have proved that these super projects can withstand the test. Unlike the dungeons and underground bunkers in the West, they have tried their best to reinforce, strengthen, and reinforce them. It did not block a larger wave of disasters, nor did it block the onset of earthquakes. These super projects protect the outer regions of the eastern continent and the inner city of the eastern continent. Hot blast furnaces, wind turbines, steam pipes, concentrating solar panels, etc., are also from the hands of Win Midnight, guarding the inner city of the mainland. Point when Westerners are wrapped in cotton jackets and eating only a piece of bread, Eastern people can sit in a warm room, watch TV, and eat hot pot, all of which are credits for Winning Midnight. Point the plan to win Midnight saved all the people in the East. Point this feat is really too great. At first, some of the people behind Win Midnight had questioned the plan of Win Midnight when the disaster was getting worse, but they didn't say it. Point some of them feel that it is too young to win Midnight. Although it is said that blue is better than blue, it is related to the lives of 2 billion people in the country. It is not 2 million, not 20 million, not 200 million, but 1 billion, a huge number, and an uncountable population, all bet on such a young man. It is really a huge gamble. Point and everything now proves that they are betting right. When the Rose Nation laughed at the Orientals, the East was building a cross-sea bridge. When the Eagle Nation laughed at the East, they were building the separation wall. When the Desert Nation laughed at them, they were building the Snow Nation train. When the whole world laughed at them, when the Orientals were insisting, racing against time to build every super project, and doing all of the country's efforts, without any hesitation or wandering, just like ants building a nest, building, and then building. Until disasters strike, the East is still building. Blizzard chariots were dispatched from each city, and rushed out of the city, They continue to eradicate icebergs and glaciers, to prevent these icebergs and glaciers from spreading to coastal, inland and other cities. Every eastern citizen wears thick winter clothes, and appears on the blizzard chariot. Some of them may have married, some may be novice fathers, some may have just married, or some may be just 18 years old. But when disaster strikes, they don't have any fear of shrinking from the request to fight. In the days of infrastructure construction, the days of building super projects, it is impossible to have no casualties. When constructing super projects, all the country's efforts were made. On the other hand, some people fell on the way of transporting materials, and some people accidentally stepped from the fence. When one fell, some people died in the severe cold, and after one fell, countless others stood up. During the Ice Age, when disasters came, the Orientals showed their unparalleled cohesion. Say not to be afraid, say not to be nervous, etc. All of them are fake, but the yellow blood flowing on the body reminds everyone. The Great Wall was built by bricks. It was made by humans from beginning to end. Great sacrifices were made. Behind the sacrifices, it successfully resisted the enemy's invasion and successfully guarded the homeland behind it. As it is now, they may sacrifice, but behind the sacrifice is to protect the homes in the back, and the families, wives, children, parents, etc. to sacrifice themselves and protect the family. Does it worth? For most people, sacrificing the ego and perfecting everyone is worth it. Even if you do it again, they still have the same choice. Until the devastating extinction of mankind at the last moment, the Easterners stopped one after another, returned to the team one after another, and went home. They have done what they can do, and everything else is left to these super projects. The images under the satellite live broadcast spread to every household, and to the west. Under the satellite live broadcast, the continental barrier steel wall blocked the super tsunami, and the cross-sea bridge stood firm under the impact of the super tsunami. Viewed from a high altitude, it looks like a super dragon, hovering on the East Road. The sea is surging, riding on the wind, and the snow country train is flashing and circling the country, tirelessly, rumbling, headed by the locomotive, breaking through the first floor. Layers of snow and fog, ice, and snow-formed glaciers, icebergs, etc. roaring like another giant dragon cruising in the east. The east is the main thing and guards the east. When the disaster strikes, it continues to speed. After countless tests, its anti-earthquake ability has successfully survived this continuous earthquake. Compared with the trains of other countries, the earthquake is coming. At that time, it didn't take much time, and the columns were destroyed on the spot. In this contrast, the West has seen disasters. The population has dropped sharply, order has collapsed, the place of existence has been severely tested, and hunger swept every human being. At this time, people who want to live have begun to give up their humanity, and they can do anything in order to live. On the other hand, in the East, they were sitting in a warm room, the family reunited, cut a piece of fresh fruit, and distributed it to each family member. In their refrigerator, there was also the food just distributed in the morning, which contained fresh corn and yam, cabbage, fresh pork, beef and so on. This food, that can only be enjoyed by the most upper class people in the West, is now too common in every household in the East. Zhao Ziming, an international student, is still alive. Waves of disasters have come, and he has escaped waves of disasters. Thanks to the resources behind him, he has a good father among the surviving Western population. There are not many international students. On the one hand, it is because of disasters, and on the other hand, it comes from the rejection of Westerners. when everyone can only see from YouTube and Twitter that Asians are sitting indoors eating hot pot, vegetables and meat. They can only gnaw on bread and dirty seawater, zero fine flowers after the disaster. At the last moment, they realize that only the East is the best place to confront. In the end, the overseas student Xiao Ziming never carried it. When a huge rock hit him, the broadcast of the East continued in front of him. In his eyes, huge cities stood on top of the wind and snow, and the heat radiated from the city, transpiring the sky, spreading warmth throughout the city. Xiao Ziming regrets it. If he could do it again, he would definitely rush back to the East, his hometown, without hesitation. The screen continued to turn to the body of Win Midnight. Behind him, Xiao Guofeng and others looked at him with great respect. In the end, Xiao Guofeng couldn't help but said, "Team leader, you saved all the Easterners. Yours this merit should be recorded in the annals of history. This is the true glory of the country." No, it's not enough. Win the Midnight to answer the question. The moment of his last death emerged in his mind. He stood on the high wall, recalling his previous life. It was a city frozen by wind, snow, and ice. The soldiers guarding the city were frozen into ice sculptures. Staying in the Ice Age forever and not guarding the city has become a deep regret and obsession. To win Midnight. Live it again. Even if you fight to win the Midnight, you have to turn the tide. Don't let the previous regret happen again. So, win the Midnight. It is not enough. After saying it 3 times in a row, the people behind Xiao Guofeng and others don't understand what he meant. Xiao Guofeng thinks that he has done enough to win Midnight. On every night, the figure of Win Midnight was stretched infinitely until the East gradually brightened, and in the East of the Ice Age, the light gradually began to appear after 8 o'clock. In front of each frame of drawing, Win Midnight lay on it to study. Down to the last digit of the decimal point. In front of every project, Win Midnight requires these chief engineers to be perfect, the ultimate perfection. Is this not enough? Gazing deeply out of the window, in the vision of Win Midnight, there is no unobstructed viewpoint. The sky is dark. There are occasional lightning, countless raindrops, blizzards, waiting for it to rustle down, as if it will never stop. Always, always, zero. The glaciers and icebergs on the ground are still gradually forming, but the speed has gradually slowed down, and the plate movement caused by the earthquake has caused these icebergs and glaciers to crack, collapse, and scatter on the ground, forming a strange scene. As the magnitude of the earthquake slowed down and slowed down, the disaster seemed to begin to subside. However, the temperature in the air slowly changed again. A bigger disaster is brewing. The super tsunami is still going on. After hitting the steel wall of the mainland barrier and the cross-sea bridge, it came to the separation wall of the coastal city. When the super tsunami came to the separation wall of these coastal cities, a more spectacular scene appeared. The separation wall, which spreads 10 kilometers and is 50 meters high, is like a second line of defense, resisting the attack of the tsunami. The drainage channel under the city wall diverted countless water currents and dispersed the impact of the tsunami. The texture was hard and shimmering with the color of steel. The isolation wall built on the eve of the devastating disaster successfully resisted the super tsunami. Coastal cities are far more dangerous than inland cities. When the tsunami comes, if something goes wrong, these coastal cities will be the first to perish in this disaster, just like the cities that existed in the previous period of human civilization. The sea was buried in the tsunami, and was buried in the sea forever. After being hit by the tsunami recently, it may not be unearthed until thousands of years or tens of thousands of years. Once, a civilization existed here. As coastal cities, Beijing and other cities are the closest to the super tsunami. Every household who stays at home can clearly hear the dull sound of the super tsunami hitting the wall. Everyone's hearts became tense. It's really fake. To say it's not nervous, the sound that shook the soul resounded in my ears, and everyone's hearts followed. In front of them, the live broadcast showed that the super tsunami was hitting their separation wall after another, impacting again and again. Bang 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 bang, time and time again. Perseverance. After the high waves were scattered through the underground drainage channels, the height gradually dropped, but the impact was more fierce than ever. Every time it hits everyone's hearts, everyone's hands are tightly clasped together. As time went on, the expressions on everyone's faces began to numb, because they found that their worries were too redundant. They came from the separation wall built by cities across the country and successfully withstood the waves of super tsunamis. I love this country. I love anyone in this country. Eastern netizens cheered in the live broadcast. The project in the East is so great. I love this country. Oh my god, I thought I was going to finish it. I didn't expect to guard the wall in front of our city, successfully blocking waves of super tsunamis. This is really shocking. I really didn't expect our country's engineering to achieve this level before. By the way, the former Great Wall, isn't it an example? Blocked again. When the camera was passed to the only remaining human beings in the West, everyone couldn't help but be shocked. They held their hands tightly and looked at all this on the live broadcast in disbelief. The project in the East is so powerful. Why doesn't our country have such a project? Why is the East still alive? Will they not freeze into ice sculptures on the surface? Or is it arcing lead to us that they can actually survive on the surface? This is a new era point. The world changes color, everything moves, and the traces of human existence are wiped out point above the surface. The terrifying extreme cold, the cold air storm seemed to swallow everything. No one came to stop it. Only a breath of sorrow permeated this vast world, as if everything was about to change point under the surface. No one knows how terrible it is, and no one knows how terrifying it is. Humans should face the extreme disaster in front of them. They either trembled or sighed. The wind and clouds roared. The world changed color. Like a reversal, this moment has reached the final moment of human destiny point. The earth is now not only an ice hockey puck, but also a planet that determines a new era point. Mutation technology appeared. The eruption of glacier life has begun. A new era is coming. And now is the last moment. Death chapter 177. 2 o'clock in the morning point. Only 2 hours have passed since the devastating human extinction disaster. In these 2 hours, the whole earth has undergone earth-shaking changes again point. The population of the West has dropped sharply. Dungeons and underground bunkers have been destroyed, and all the hard work has been destroyed point. The only remaining Western population complained and struggled. As the earthquake level gradually weakened and diminished, everyone thought that the disaster was over. What awaits them is the process of slowly rebuilding their homes and recovering vitality, but they don't know a greater disaster waiting for them point under the continuous earthquake on a global scale and the tsunami triggered by it, hitting the mainland, hitting dungeons, underground bunkers, etc. An extreme cold is slowly brewing as the tsunami kept hitting the steel wall of the mainland barrier, hitting the sea crossing bridge, and hitting coastal cities such as the 107 separation wall. An extreme cold began with the glaciers in the north and south, and it was rapidly forming point at the moment. The temperature of the north and south glaciers is more than 200 degrees below zero, and it has become a restricted area on the surface point. The temperature here can freeze people or animals into ice sculptures in an instant, and the cells stop moving in an instant. Here, in addition to the endless white, it is still white point. Glaciers and icebergs are all white. At first glance, even the sky is white. The wind and snow are mixed, rustling down, and the clouds are white. The clouds of fog spread with the wind, and the endless white point. If humans appeared here, they would be desperate point. The entire sky is white, pure white, without any other colors on the surface. There is no living creature, only the roar of the wind, and the sound of the continuously fragmenting icebergs, glaciers, ice seas, the movement of plates caused by earthquakes, the rapid spread of cracks on the ice surface and the freezing again. But broken, the speed is much faster than freezing, and the entire ice surface is distorted. Endless bang as an ice sculpture was blown to the ground. The temperature of the entire world dropped again point. I don't know where to start. The entire iceberg glacier is once again covered with a layer of crystal color, as hard as steel, indestructible, and the ice above the iceberg is like sharp steel knives, shining with sharp edges. The entire ice surface was quickly frozen and recovered with a layer of crystal clear. Starting from the north and south glaciers, it rapidly expanded to the west and east point as the earthquake gradually stopped. The western people were packing up the scene after the disaster. They were wearing thick cotton clothes that they could wear, but they still couldn't hide their trembling. It was too cold, and they were trembling in the cold. The originally closed underground bunker blocked the extreme cold, but the earthquake caused the ground to rupture, so a trace of cold began to intrude unknowingly, and when everyone noticed, the extreme cold storm had arrived. The entire underground bunker cooled down instantly. Someone fell to the ground due to injuries. When his family found him, he was permanently frozen on the spot. Cold deep into the bone marrow. This kind of cold, even the exhaled breath became a thin layer, and the beads of sweat on his face turned into ice beads in an instant. An extremely cold storm swept across the west. At the same time, an extremely cold storm also quietly descended to the east. Bang bang bang. The super tsunami hit the steel wall of the mainland barrier, making a dull sound, shaking the earth, and it was very shocking, as if it would never stop. In the satellite lens, all the people of the east followed their breathing tightly, no dare to relax, and dare not fall asleep. Look, I don't know who said it. In the satellite lens, a mist came from the north, and when the mist dissipated, the avalanche of seawater suddenly stopped surging, a layer of crystal shimmering light, starting from the north. It was quickly frozen into a layer of ice. The whole picture is very shocking, indescribable. The roaring tsunami is constantly beating against the super steel wall, and just behind it, layers of seawater are rapidly frozen and spread at an extremely fast speed. The inland city farthest from the mainland barrier also felt a temperature drop. People who were still outside couldn't help it even in thick winter clothes. The cold deep into the bone marrow made people shiver involuntarily. The alarm went off again. The announcement quickly spread throughout the east. An extremely cold storm is coming, and an extremely cold storm is coming. Please take precautions against the cold. People who are still outside are asked to find a nearby shelter from the cold. All people are asked to take precautions against the cold. The cycle goes back and forth, full of rush, full of seriousness. All the people in the east are just beginning the announcement, and they are quickly preparing for zero. It's finally here. An extremely cold storm. Ying Ziyue stood in the floor-to-ceiling windows of the meteorological observatory, 100 meters from the ground, and rushed into the sky. His gaze was very long, as if seeing that layer of seawater was frozen instantly, and the 4,000 kilometers of the mainland barrier was stained with a layer of crystal. The frost, the cross-sea bridge became an ice bridge, standing above the three seas of the Liaohe and North Seas. The seawater that was hitting the separation wall stopped all surging in an instant, and was frozen on the spot. It's time to prepare, said Win Midnight. Yes. Zhao Guofeng, who was behind him, responded, and after saying that, his order was immediately passed on. From this moment on, no more room, no longer reserved. All heating facilities have been improved to the extreme, to meet the next devastating extinction of human disaster. Click, click. In the satellite lens, when the fog dissipated, the entire sea surface formed a beautiful and extremely beautiful scenery, shining with light. Endless waves of surging sea, frozen in midair, shocked beyond words. In about 10 minutes, the super tsunami that was hitting the steel wall of the mainland barrier was slowly fading, and the impact began to weaken. Here comes the extreme cold storm. The person in charge, stationed in the coastal city, looking at the steel wall of the mainland barrier, could feel that the super tsunami there was slowly weakening. And he couldn't help his inner excitement and his heart surging. Every second, while waiting for the arrival of the extreme cold storm, I was suffering very much. The mainland barrier steel wall successfully resisted that tsunami. This super project has completed its responsibility. Then, the next extreme cold storm will face all heating facilities, hot blast furnaces, concentrating solar panels, and all super projects. The temperature in the air has now exceeded the coldest cities and regions in the civilization period, but everyone can withstand it after using cold resistant tools. But the extreme cold storm is different. Its appearance can make the sea surface and the gallop freeze quickly, and can freeze the temperature of the entire tsunami has exceeded the extreme. Chapter 178. At 3 AM on February 1st, the third year of the Ice Age. No region has been spared by the global persistent earthquake. All countries including the West and the East have suffered a wave of heavy losses. The tsunami triggered by the earthquake has made the country worse for those who are still alive. But in this disaster, the engineering contest between countries, between the West and the East will win. The West suffered heavy losses and continued to lose signals. Bunkers were buried in the ground forever. Tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people died in the disasters brought about by the Ice Age. In the East, although there were losses, they were negligible. The super disaster is coming. The engineering contrasts the era. The East is far superior, and the West has paid an extremely serious price for their arrogance. It's not finished yet. Point in the earthquake. The tsunami caused by the earthquake swept across the entire world, followed by an extreme cold, starting with the north and south glaciers, and rapidly expanding to the west and east points due to the movement of the plates caused by the earthquake. The underground 02 bunker in the west is no longer airtight. Thick cracks cracked along the wall, and the arrival of extreme cold seeped from these cracks and swept the entire underground bunker. When the people in the underground bunker noticed this situation, many people had frozen to death in the extreme cold, and all the living people were in chaos again, and the time of testing humanity began again. Point with the passage of time, exciting moments descended in the east. Point the extreme cold that started with the glaciers in the north and south finally came to the front of the steel wall of the eastern continent. The temperature in the air was extremely cold. If someone appeared outside the house at this moment, the exhaled breath would turn into ice directly. No, to be precise. When the extreme cold gradually approached the barrier of the eastern continent, no one dared to step out of the room again, even wearing the thickest cold-proof clothing and driving the most cold-proof tool. Point when the northern and southern glaciers began in the extreme cold, the satellite transmitted this scene to the Eastern Meteorological Observatory. Then, a warning was passed on, and an announcement spread throughout the east. All people outside need to look for it. Evacuate to the nearest refuge point at this time. All the convoys and people still outside began to look for nearby shelters, and no one dared to stay outside anymore. Point the consequences of an extreme cold storm are more serious than earthquakes and tsunamis. Its appearance can freeze people into ice in an instant, and it can freeze everything, no matter any object. Its severity can be reflected in the sound of an alarm. Come out, so everyone is afraid to stay outside. The second after the warning announcement was issued, all the people outside started looking for shelter. Not only humans are striving for survival, but also animals. Animals have stronger early warning capabilities than humans. They are more sensitive. When they feel the changes in the air, they dig holes quickly. No matter any animal, at this time, they no longer hunting, is no longer to fill the stomach, but to dig holes, and keep digging holes, just like human beings. In the early stage of the disaster, they continue to build infrastructure, and they continue to dig holes, until they think it is safe. Point all animals, including evolving mammoths, bears, leopards, snow rabbits, and so on, are digging holes and exhausting all their strength. Point finally, the extreme cold storm came. Point the rushing waves are frozen in midair, forming a picture that is beautiful to the extreme, and then it stretches continuously, stretches all the way, looking from the sky, a scene that is so beautiful that it cannot be described in words. Slowly appear on this big road. That tsunami that hit the steel wall of the mainland barrier gradually ceased, and the power of the flap gradually decreased. Behind it, an extremely cold storm swept through, until it came to the eastern mainland barrier. At this moment, a burst of light shines from the eastern mainland barrier, a total of 4,000 kilometers. A dazzling to the extreme ray of light suddenly lit up on the mainland barrier of China. Point it was really shocking. At this moment, everyone who watched the satellite live broadcast, whether from the west or the east, held their breath, and their hearts beat violently. The picture at this moment really cannot be described in any language. Point in the picture, taken from the satellite above, a long dragon surrounded the entire east. In the dark night, a ray of light lit up, shining brightly, and igniting the night sky. Point, that is the concentrating solar panel at play. Point the 4,000 kilometer mainland barrier was also installed with heating facilities, exhausting the nation's power, and exhausting all labor. For 4,000 kilometers, an indescribable super project. Comparable to the Great Wall. Point at the same time, all the isolation walls in coastal cities, the walls up to 100 meters in inland cities, and the hot blast furnaces, wind turbines, steam pipes, etc. in the cities, have all been brought to the extreme at this moment. All heating facilities have been improved to the extreme, and no room is reserved. A burst of heat rose from the city, soared into the air. and collided with bursts of cold air. At this moment, two bursts of air collided, which could not be seen with the naked eye, forming a weird picture. Mixed together, the hot air transported by the steam pipe installed on the city wall makes the whole pipe red and protects the entire wall. Concentrating solar panels are also installed on the wall, which is close to the eastern continent during the extreme cold storm. The moment the barrier was also lit up at the same time, not only the concentrating solar panels on the city walls, but also the walls that protect the city, the isolation walls of coastal cities, and all the concentrating solar panels are lit up. The steel wall of the eastern continent's barrier is just the beginning. When all the concentrating solar panels are lit up, they can start a prairie fire when viewed from space. This picture is really beautiful to the extreme, and the most important thing is the entire Earth. A vast expanse of whiteness. These suddenly dotted stars are like hope, giving people hope in the boundless and desperate ice age. At this moment, people in the West, who are still watching the live broadcast, can't say anything. They thought that the Easterners were the same as them. At this time of disaster, there was only despair and waiting for death, but they did not expect that at the last moment, the Eastern was still fighting and fighting with all his strength. The extremely cold storm swept across the steel wall of the eastern continent barrier, rapidly spreading from the coastal cities to the inland cities, leaving no trace of the area. The extreme temperature has stained the steel walls and the isolation walls of coastal cities with layer after layer of frost, and the sea crossing bridges stained with a layer of crystal color. Chapter 179. When building a cross-sea bridge, when midnight also takes into account the extreme cold storm. Therefore, the cross-sea bridge built with special materials will not cause much damage, even if it is swept by the extreme cold storm. Therefore, when the extreme cold storm really swept through, the cross-sea bridge was stained with a layer of crystal color, and in the dark night, it was glowing with white light, which was even more majestic and magnificent. Across the three oceans, endless. When the satellite broadcast to this scene, the hearts of the Orientals are surging with indescribable hearts. The extreme cold storm spreads along the steel wall of the mainland barrier to coastal cities, passing by the separation wall. When the concentrating solar panels on the wall follow to the extreme, in the dark night, in the eyes of the people in coastal cities, there is indescribable excitement. At the same time, the wind turbines in the city are also running at high speed, running to the extreme, providing all the electrical energy, and continuously transporting them. The huge wind power generator in the dark night, like the cross-sea bridge, is very majestic and magnificent. The huge fan leaves whirling, and in the dark night, it is very shocking. The scorching blast furnace burns to the extreme, and the heat emitted by it rises to high altitude, and is transported to every residential building through steam pipes. In the dark, every residential building is surrounded by warm heating, and the residential building is hard as steel. It was very magical. At the moment when the extreme cold storm arrived, all the people could feel the extreme cold filling the room. Cold, deep into the bone marrow, makes people shiver involuntarily. Visible to the naked eye, the room was instantly enveloped by a layer of frost, and then it instantly turned into a burst of heat, and evaporated into the air. At this moment, the heat transmitted by the steam pipes is warming every residential building. The heating equipment has been upgraded to the extreme. All means are not reserved. The meteorological observatory, just on the 100-meter wall, watched the extreme cold storm sweep across the sky, and the whole world was covered with crystals. In a blink of an eye, he came to the huge glass window made of special materials visible to the naked eye. The rapid frost on the window spreads, forming a beautiful scene. Outside of this scene, all kinds of equipment are working hard. Ying Ziyue didn't take a step back, but stood against the frost, feeling the extreme cold air hitting him. Even with the windows, made of special materials, he couldn't stop the cold air from coming. Shrouded by a deep-rooted coldness, winning midnight did not take a step back. Behind him, countless scientists and professors did the same. A group of people, not afraid of the frost and coldness in front of them, but faced with an unusually calm face. All this is facing the sweeping of the extreme cold storm. Inside the city, an airship galloping in the air, with the words Yan and Huan written on it. At the moment, when the extreme cold swept through, the airship turned on all the heating equipment and the special materials it used to make it. fighting the cold in midair. Only by rotating continuously can we avoid being frozen by the extreme cold storm. All the airships are flying at a uniform height in the air at this moment, constantly rotating, and the heat emitted by the hot blast furnace cooperates with each other to fight the extreme cold storm point at this moment. Looking out of the window, all the airships flew up into the sky, hazy and looming amidst the fog and the confrontation between the hot and cold air currents. The extreme cold storm finally came to the inner city point at this moment. The Northern Ecological Park, Xihai Warehouse, etc. are all undergoing the test of the extreme cold storm. As an important strategic location for national materials, the Northern Ecological Park and Xihai Warehouse have all been under key protection point. The person in charge here swears to the death to defend the Northern Ecological Park and Xihai Warehouse. People and materials are here. The steam pipes laid in the Northern Ecological Park have also been upgraded to the extreme at this moment, and the various animals and plants living in the Ice Age have undergone development and cultivation during the 3 years of the Ice Age, and they have also changed with the environment. All of them have also produced a certain degree of cold resistance. There is a saying that it is good that natural selection will compete with the fittest, and the survival of the animals and plants will not only have the ability to withstand cold, but also have changes in the growth cycle. Everything evolves in accordance with the environment. Similarly, the factories in the south are also undergoing tests. As another strategic point of the East, the South is mainly responsible for the production of cotton, steel, etc. These important strategic materials. At this moment, the steam pipes laid in its factories have also been upgraded to extreme point. The snow country train traveled around the country. When the extreme cold storm hits, its speed also increased to the extreme at this moment, making a huge sound, and it was also crossed against the extreme cold storm. The upper layer of crystal color. The snow country train did not dare to stop. Only by speeding up could it fight the extreme cold storm and avoid being frozen. The snow country train was also subjected to a series of tests after some research, including earthquake resistance, tsunami resistance, and extreme cold. Therefore, by the time of the final test, the snow country train has survived the earthquake and survived the tsunami. Finally, waited until the extreme cold storm hit. Like a beast, bursting out of the white fog, an extreme depression struck, and the people watching the satellite became excited. Rumble sound of the snow country train still rang in my ears at this moment. All heating facilities have been upgraded to the extreme point. The confrontation between the heat and the cold air forms an indescribable and stunning picture. From the satellite, this scene is really beautiful and stunning. This night was destined to be a difficult night. Almost everyone did not sleep, watching and admiring the extreme scene of the extreme cold storm confronting the Eastern Super Project under the satellite. This night is destined to be an unforgettable night for everyone, and it is destined to be included in human history. Tonight, the Oriental Super Project proved to the world that no matter what period of the East, it will never succumb, and the Zao who got Fangren spent the hardest night in the chaos, weeping and crying. A ray of sunlight broke through the dark clouds and gently sprayed on the ground. A cluster of snow was pushed up and down. After a few minutes, Bang was finally pushed aside. A snow white rabbit appeared in this endless snowy white. The petals are red, the eyes are red, very cute. And then, a fierce tiger also pushed aside the snow bush not far away and appeared on the snow white ground. In the following, all kinds of animals also appeared on the snow white land, adding vitality to this continent that has experienced a night of hardship. The animals living in the periphery were not extinct by the extreme cold of the earthquake. Their tenacious vitality urged them to survive this disaster, just like the East and the disaster. Good morning. Chapter 180. 10 AM on February 1st, the third year of the Ice Age. When the sun broke through the dark clouds and sprinkled on the ground, when the first snow hair outside the city arched out of the snow, when the sound of deactivating the alarm resounded throughout the East, with a creak, the first ordinary people in Ying City pushed away their home. Then, the opposite door was also opened. Good morning. Good morning. A feeling of aftermath came to life spontaneously, and then the two looked at each other and smiled without saying anything. This ordinary scene is like a beginning On the first day of February in the third year of the Ice Age, the people of the East experienced the most thrilling night before they walked out of their homes as the camera turned, came to space. Satellites revolve around the Earth, aim at the Earth, and broadcast live the Earth at this moment. Compared with the satellites in the civilization period, the number of satellites surrounding the Earth has decreased a lot at this moment. Some people lost contact with the ground and crashed into space when the Ice Age just arrived. Some disappeared in this vast space in the first and second years of the Ice Age, and some last night. After losing contact with countries on the ground, all satellites have lost their navigational direction, waiting for their fuel to burn out, which represents the complete destruction of their country. At this moment, in space, the Eastern Satellite, the Rose Kingdom Satellite, the Eagle Kingdom and other satellites are still revolving around the Earth. Their astronaut looked through the window and saw a bright white planet floating quietly in space. This bright white planet is the Earth. After a thrilling night, earthquake, a tsunami, and extreme cold swept across, the planet was covered with a bright white, very, very beautiful, like an ice hockey puck. The colors of the oceans and continents of the past are no longer seen. The planet has returned to the Cambrian appearance, and the Earth has been reshuffled. At this moment, after the global island-splitting disaster, persistent earthquakes, tsunamis, and extreme cold storms, all islands, including the mainland, have almost moved their positions, and the original 7 continents have changed. It is no longer the original position. The Earth is more of an endless ocean, which is wider than the civilization period. After the extreme cold storm, it has become an endless sea of ice. The thickness of the ice is about a few hundred meters. In some places even several kilometers, such as the northern and southern glaciers. The average thickness of the ice in the southern glaciers during the civilization period was 1880 meters, and the thickest point could reach 4800 meters. After experiencing the Ice Age, the initial place of the extreme cold storm, all ice at this moment, the layers almost reach 4800 meters, and the thickest part can be as high as 7000 meters, a terrifying figure. On this Earth, there is no building comparable to it. The thickness of 4800 meters is comparable to a skyscraper. If a person falls, it is frozen halfway before it falls into the ice. But for a long time, no one stepped into the north and south glaciers. The temperature here, even with the thickest cold-proof clothing and the most cold-proof tools, could not be entered. This has become a real forbidden zone on the surface. The creatures that can survive in the northern and southern glaciers can be counted with 2 hands, and it will take a long time to recover here. At this moment, after a night of devastating extinction of mankind, when the sun shines on the Earth again, the darkness of the sky gradually fades, and everything has reappeared under the sun. At this moment, everyone feels that light is too important. Only when they have experienced major disasters will they feel that when the sun is shining on the Earth, the people who are still alive are excited in their hearts, and they greedily enjoy it. Only a few hours of sunshine, breathing fresh air, just wish time to stay at this moment forever. The Earth's surface as seen from the satellite is covered by a layer of bright white. The endless whiteness. The whole world is covered. The famous Iron Tower fell to the ground and became an eternal civilized building, showing only an outline, surrounded by glaciers, icebergs, etc. endlessly. The goddess holding the torch was only half of her body left. The hand holding the torch had been broken, and she fell on the ground, covered by ice and snow, and only half of her arm remained. The very famous pyramid was hit by the tsunami, and after the extreme cold swept through, only half of the spire remained, exposed on the ice. It may wait hundreds or even thousands of years before it can reappear in the world. When later generations come to visit, perhaps even the spire ceases to exist, or it reappears again, becoming the history of civilization. Wait, many buildings are covered under the wind and frost, and become the history of civilization forever. There are also countries that have been destroyed, and they have all become history. Only in the history books of later generations can we see that the once developed countries have a lot of oil, and are called oil powers. When the disaster of the Ice Age came, it was finally buried in under the ground. Stay underground forever. Perhaps these permanently dormant countries will become archaeological relics for later generations, just like the civilization period. As for the countries that are still alive in the West, when the sun rises, it shines on the ground. At this moment, the semi-underground bunkers and dungeons are all in a mess, and it is terrible point. When the tsunami came, the other states of the Rose Country were inundated by the tsunami, leaving only 2 states, while the 30 bunkers and 25 bunkers of the Eagle Country lost contact point after the extreme cold swept through. The West was once again hit by a wave of devastating disasters. The population of the remaining 2 states of Rose Country has dropped sharply again. Many people failed to survive the extreme cold and died in the extreme cold storm. The cracks in the dungeon caused the cold to invade. Many people waited until it was too late to prepare. The underground bunker in the Eagle Nation is also the same. The earthquake caused the protection of the bunker to rupture, and the cold invaded. Many people survived the earthquake and tsunami, but did not survive the extreme cold. The cold invaded and froze instantly. Wait, it's too miserable. All the people in the West are in silence at this moment. They are busy cleaning up the scene after the disaster, remembering their lost relatives, and no one pays attention to the news such as oil pipes and Twitter, so they don't know that the East at this moment, compared with the West, is a completely different scene. After the earthquake, the tsunami, and the extremely cold East, the streets are thriving at this moment, with pride and cheers under the shining of the sun. The steel wall of the mainland barrier that guards the eastern continent is still standing high, 4,000 kilometers long, guarding this continent. When the sun shines on the hard textured steel wall, the frost is slowing down from above. It faded slowly, revealing the original face of the barrier. The super engineering sea crossing bridge is now located above the 3 seas. The sea has been frozen, but the sea crossing bridge is extremely strong and guards the east like a long dragon. Chapter 181. The super engineering sea crossing bridge is now located above the 3 seas. The sea has been frozen, but the sea crossing bridge is extremely strong and guards the entire east like a long dragon. The long icebound dragon is slowly fading away with the rays of dawning sunlight. The 10 kilometers long and 50 meters high separation wall urgently built by the coastal city is standing tall. After the impact of the earthquake and tsunami, it was finally swept by the extreme cold storm. It is still standing here like one giant after another. On the mainland, the project formed by the assembly of dozens of cities and labor forces across the country has finally withstood the test of this devastating extinction of humanity. The wall guarding the inner city is as high as 100 meters. At this time, like the separation wall of coastal cities, it still stands tall. On its surface, it is covered with layers of crystals. It is slowly following the dawn of the Sunday melt point, and under the layers of crystal clear cover, it is the concentrating solar panels made of special materials, which bloom like daylight in the early hours of the morning, spreading across the eastern continent. Unprecedentedly bright. The confrontation between the heat and the cold air radiates, forming an extremely stunning scene. This scene was even captured by satellites and spread to everyone's computers, TVs, and mobile phones. On the eastern continent, in the dark long night, dots and dots converge. In this desperate ice age, it looks like a chain. It is like pointing a light, guiding the way forward for the people of the east. The wind turbines that provide power for the concentrating solar panels have been rotating since the arrival of the extreme cold, providing a steady stream of electrical energy. This project, in the early hours of the morning, can be said to have reached its limit. The scorching blast furnace in the city also protects these cities to the extreme. When the extreme cold storm arrives, the heat radiated and the confrontation with the cold air form a stunning scene. When the extreme cold storm arrives, even if you look at it with the naked eye, you can see that when the extreme cold storm tries to freeze everything in the city, the heat emitted by the hot blast furnace, step by step against the extreme cold storm, the hot air is continuously transported to each residential building through the steam pipeline. Upstairs, clusters of seaweed are also covered with crystals. Many of them died in the extreme cold storms in the early morning. However, the tenacious vitality of seaweeds glowed with new life at dawn. Vitality, and strive to break through the frost brought by the extreme cold. In the meteorological observatory on the wall of the city of Yanjing, up to 100 meters high, in front of the wide temperature isolated windows, one person stood all night. Group leader, Rest, Zhao Guofeng stepped forward to persuade him. His eyes were full of bloodshot eyes. From yesterday, no, the day before yesterday, he hadn't rested much. Last night until now, he hasn't rested. For example, the steel wall of the mainland barrier, the separation wall, etc. He resolutely stuck to his post point, but compared to him, the young man in front of him hadn't had a good rest for almost a week. Last night, the day before yesterday, he stayed up all night. I am struck people can't bear the state of almost no sleep for a week. What's more, the brain has been running at a high speed, and a national plan is always brewing in the mind. Ying Ziyue did not speak, but slowly turned around, passing by Zhao Guofeng and the professors and engineers behind him one by one. When he came into contact with the vicissitudes and wisdom eyes, he gently breathing out a suffocating breath. The face that has been tight, but behaved as if nothing has happened. A smile slowly bloomed in my ears. Cheers came from the city. Oh my god, I have never felt the air so fresh. We passed a night of disaster and we are still alive. My god, what happened in the early hours of the morning? I thought I was going to die. I also thought I was going to die. I didn't sleep all night. When the extreme cold storm came, I only felt a chill. It was too cold. I couldn't imagine how they should survive in the West without hot blast furnaces and wind turbines. Thanks to the super engineering of the East, it feels so good to be alive. Thanks to the super project. Thanks to the country. After the catastrophic night, everyone ran out of the house, stepping on the thick snow, stepping on the thick frost, running to tell each other, and cheering enthusiastically. Although the triple disaster has passed, the temperature in the air is colder than before. This is a consequence of the extreme cold storm. The surrounding air temperature is colder than before, but this does not hinder the celebration of the people in the East! Zero fine flowers. They are still alive and living well, and their families, wives, parents, and children are also alive and living well. After experiencing these three disasters, they cherish each other's family even more. This scene of cheering and celebration is not only in Ying City, but also in other cities. They walked out the door one after another, not afraid of the wind and snow at this time, stepped on the snow, stepped on the thick frost, ran to the street, cheered enthusiastically, and greedily enjoyed the raindrops falling from the sky, and opened their hands. Embrace this world. This scene was transmitted to the satellite and then broadcasted by the satellite to every TV, computer, and mobile phone. Everyone cheered and celebrated. It also infected every Eastern citizen watching on TV. Everyone seemed to be infected. Can't help being excited. Can't help but feel surging. The tears of the rest of their lives shed from everyone's face. At this moment, everyone felt extremely proud because they had a powerful country, and they were very lucky that they were born in the East. Report team leader. The triple disaster has passed. At dawn, the sun reappeared on the earth. The ordinary people cheered proudly and were excited that they were still alive, while the high levels of the East looked grim after the excitement. The disaster has passed, and the problems that remain in front of the senior management are the consequences of the disaster and the remaining problems. The losses caused by the disasters in various cities were passed to Zhao Guofeng inconsistently, and then Zhao Guofeng organized the report. To win midnight. Ying Ziyue did not go back to rest, but stayed in the room for people to rest in the weather observation room, closed his eyes, and slept for a while. In fact, Ying Ziyue can't sleep. His brain is running frantically all the time, planning, and wholeheartedly for this country. He wants to protect this country and let this country survive for a long time during the Ice Age. All the losses caused by the major cities in the south and north have been sorted out. Ying Ziyue rubbed his forehead, and when he opened his eyes, he regained his spirit. Death Chapter 182. The south mainly relies on cotton, steel and other materials, while the north mainly relies on Xihai Warehouse and Xihai Ecological Park. Both perform their duties and cooperate with each other to continuously provide important materials for the East during the Ice Age. The most serious damage was the Xihai Warehouse, because the Xihai Warehouse involved a large area, and the extreme cold storm swept across the Xihai Warehouse, testing all aspects of the Xihai Warehouse's storage capabilities, infrastructure capabilities, and disaster response capabilities. Everything as expected. To win midnight point, winning Xihai had already done his best. As long as the Bihei warehouse was still there, all losses could be made up. Point win midnight. Let Zhao Guofeng continue to report. Point Zhao Guofeng responded and continued to report losses in other places. After a whole day of sorting out the losses, it finally reached the hands of Win Midnight, and all the professors, engineers and others in the room understood the 1-0 East. After the disaster there is no harm if there is no comparison. These professors and engineers do not say anything. They are extremely grateful that the East after the disaster has suffered the least damage compared to other countries. Compared with the West at this moment has become a mess. The whole night of chaos passed, and after the disaster ceased, the entire West and senior management finally recovered and began to give orders. However, because of this devastating extinction of humanity, the order of the entire West can hardly be maintained. It will take time to maintain the previous order. It took a long time for all the losses to be reported, and the minister of the Eagle country, Rodder's face was extremely blue. Rodder's meticulous hair is messy, and his clothes are stained with grey stains. He has never been so embarrassed. Regardless of his image, he clenched his hands and frowned, listening to the report from Deputy Minister Thomas. Everything is messed up. The 25 bunkers have completely lost news and can no longer be contacted. Although Thomas didn't say it clearly, the results have shown that these 25 bunkers are probably buried forever under the ice age. The interior is heavy and depressing. After a long time, Roddy took a deep breath and said, the other industry, agriculture, etc. have all suffered varying degrees of damage. Thomas simply summed up the loss of the Eagle Nation after the disaster. His tone was heavier than before. Roddy didn't need to continue to ask, but he also clearly knew how serious Thomas's sentence was to varying degrees of damage. Roddy took a deep breath again and said, what else? Because of the disaster, the order collapsed, and it will take a long time to restore the original order. Thomas said, it will take a long time. How long? Roddy stared into Thomas' eyes and said, this. Thomas was very embarrassed. Thomas is very upset by Roddy's aggressive atmosphere. He and Roddy are just a deputy minister and the other is a minister. Why would Roddy treat him as an ordinary subordinate? Thomas took a deep breath and suppressed his inner fire. Specifically, it needs to be replanned. What a bunch of trash. Roddy couldn't help but said. Roddy's heart was also full of anger and despair that he didn't want to admit. In the civilized period, the Eagle Nation was the first developed country. Many countries were led by the Eagle Nation. What a beautiful scenery. After a sudden disaster, everything has changed. Roddy looked towards the east and said, Thomas, what's the situation in the east at the moment? How is the situation in the east? At the same time, Tron, the newly appointed minister of the United States of Roses, asked. The original minister had already died in the extreme cold storm. Even though he was wearing a thick winter coat, he could not withstand the extreme cold. Soon, the new minister took office and replaced him. The East has also suffered varying degrees of damage. Just varying degrees of damage. Tron turned his head, his face full of surprise. Is the East not extinct? In Tron's consciousness, he felt that the surface has become a forbidden zone for mankind, and no one without a country can survive the catastrophe of the early morning of February 1st. But I didn't expect that Dongfang not only passed it through, but the extent of damage was beyond everyone's expectation. This is really unexpected. How much is the specific damage? Truong said, this will take time. The most direct way is to watch the present Dongfang through Dongfang's satellite broadcast. The deputy minister reminded. Then, everyone's eyes came to the big screen 0. At this moment, all the states of the United States of Roses are left with the last 2 states. Other states have perished in this disaster. In the meeting room of the United States of Roses, it is also depressing at this moment. Order collapsed. Industry and agriculture have suffered varying degrees of damage. At the same time, the population of the 2 states combined is only a few million people, and half of these millions of people are sick or injured and may not survive the next one. Weak. Wait. They struggled hard in the dungeon. Wailing point. The West at this moment is really miserable point. In sharp contrast, the image is broadcast by the Eastern satellites, watched by the United States of the Roses and the Eagle Nation. The steel wall of the continental barrier still stands on the edge of the eastern continent like a giant point. That tsunami did not knock down the steel wall of the mainland barrier, and the extreme cold storm did not freeze the steel wall of the mainland barrier. The 4,000-kilometer-long steel wall guarded the continent point. The super-engineering sea-crossing bridge spans 3 large seas. Under the broadcast of satellites, it resembles a long dragon on this continent. Similarly, earthquakes, tsunamis, and extremely cold storms have not destroyed the super-engineering point. The snow and wind cities stand on the surface, like stubborn rocks, firmly rooted on this continent. But this is not the most important thing. On the streets, pedestrians are cheering and celebrating. That one, the smile on Zhang's face fell in the eyes of Westerners, which was really ironic. Point. The snow country train traveled around the country for 5.5, rumbling and roaring, which was very spectacular and shocking. Point. The airships were galloping in the air, and the words flaming and yellow were looming through the fog. Point. The artificial islands previously built with floating slabs are now fixed on the sea surface. Because of the extreme cold storm, all the sea surface is frozen. This also provides convenience for the artificial islands. Everyone can use tools to get from the ice, glide directly to the man-made islands on the surface. The large and small man-made islands are dotted on the 3 seas of Liaohe and Bihei. On February 2nd, the 3rd year of the Ice Age, the surface is full of extreme cold and sub-zero. Except in the east, no country can survive on the surface, but has experienced the catastrophic extinction of mankind. Global comparison with the Oriental super project Farwinds. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183. The 3rd year of the Ice Age. February 3rd. Less than 3 days have passed since the triple catastrophe, and the Earth at this moment has gradually revealed its post-disaster appearance. Shooting of the Earth through satellites at close range and spreading it to every surviving national television and other communication tools. Everyone was silent. It's really tragic. I don't know what language to describe. The southern and northern glaciers are still white, but under this snow white, the average thickness of the ice can reach 4,800, and the maximum thickness is 7,000 meters. Above this ice, there is not a living creature. Earthquake, a tsunami, an extreme cold swept through, freezing in addition to all the glaciers in the north and south. Due to the damage caused by the earthquake, the glaciers and icebergs in the north and south are messy, like a scene after the war. Icebergs and icebergs form ice barriers, which are very messy and messy. For a long time, there were no living creatures in the glaciers of the south and north. There was no oxygen here, the temperature dropped to the extreme, and it was full of extreme cold. In the other oceans that were frozen in 02 by the extreme cold storm, the waves that were set off were frozen in the air, hundreds of meters, thousands of meters, in the sun, shimmering and gleaming, frozen high in the air. This picture spread to satellites, and then broadcast by satellites. Everyone is afraid of it. How powerful is that tsunami? There was a tsunami during the civilization period, which caused millions of people to die in this tsunami. When the tsunami was swept by an extremely cold storm, it was all frozen. That huge the stream of water was frozen in midair, forming a spectacular scene, comparable to tall buildings in summer. It's really spectacular, and it's too frightening. The people who are alive are extremely grateful that they are very lucky to survive an extremely cold storm that is even worse than a tsunami. The buildings in the civilized period were completely submerged by wind and snow, or only part of them were exposed on the surface, showing signs that humans once existed on the surface. Looking from the satellite, the endless white snow, except for a part of the continents, occupies the most of the earth is the ocean, but at this moment the ocean is completely frozen by ice due to the extremely cold storm. Perhaps one day, all oceans will be completely unblocked, and the earth will return to millions of years ago. Oceans occupies most of the world. The endless sea blue floods this planet. At that time, the Earth will no longer be an ice ball, but a hockey puck. Blue planet point. But at that time, if all the oceans are unsealed, the resulting ocean currents will hit every continent that still exists, and the consequences will be unpredictable at that time point. As the satellite drew closer again, on this hockey puck, a continent was glowing with vitality, slowly unfolding in front of everyone who was still alive. This continent is the East. After 2 days of trimming, Ying Ziyue issued the order again. Nanbei Guangcheng continued to speed up research on engines, and at the same time released various animals, speeding up the explosion of life species looking from the satellite. At this moment in the East, there are 1 or 2 small black dots dotted on this continent one after another. They are the evolutionary life species such as mammoths that survived the triple disasters. After experiencing these triple disasters, all animals that could survive have undergone metamorphosis again. Above the surface, 180 degrees below zero, humans need the best cold resistant tools to walk on the surface, and animals can only survive by evolving and adapting to this environment. In order to survive, their own evolution speed is like pressing the fast forward button. Since when Midnight issued the order of life species evolution, in a short period of time, all animals have evolved rapidly toward their ancestors. Animals that have been tested for cold resistance are once again placed on this continent. After entering this continent and leaving the siege, some animals did not adapt to this world and died quickly, while some survived. If there are no other accidents, these surviving animals will evolve in order to adapt to the current environment. The gene biological chain strives to evolve to the ancestors. There were unscrupulous orders passed on one by one. Although the triple disaster has passed, no one knows, and no one can predict, whether there will be a greater disaster waiting for them in the future. All professors, engineers, and leaders in all walks of life have not taken it lightly at all. Especially when the top order was delivered, everyone's hearts were raised again. The Ice Age is not like a civilization period. You never know or guess the next second. Once a disaster occurs, it may be devastating. Just like the triple disaster that occurred in the early morning of February 1st, if it weren't for the numerous super projects, the East would not have survived at all, and it might have been extinct as early as the arrival of the Ice Age in the first year of the Ice Age. After the triple disaster, the East needs to be renovated, and the third order is issued. And all the people in the East are boiling. Those who go to work stop working, those who go to school stop their studies, etc. are all invested in a comprehensive renovation. Fully produce the materials needed for the renovation, fully invest in the infrastructure, comprehensively maintain the super projects, and repair these super projects as quickly as possible. As the inner city gate opened, blizzard chariots drove 110 out of the gate one after another. The huge blizzard chariot eradicated icebergs and glaciers all the way, and the flying snowflakes splashed on the ground, accompanied by the sound of rumbling, one after another, full of enthusiasm. And on the blizzard chariot there are still banners that read from the echelon of Ying City. Bright banners were displayed in the air. Starting from the inner city, a total of more than 80 cities rushed to the mainland barrier, sea crossing bridge, separation wall, etc. Super projects. Everyone dare not delay, fighting for every minute and every second. When encountering icebergs that are difficult to conquer, everything will be opened by the measure. The rumbling voice sounded continuously, and the people in the blizzard chariot looked a little excited. In their hearts, look, this is Eastern technology, invincible. After experiencing earthquakes, tsunamis, and extreme cold, the continent has undergone changes. It is more difficult than ever to drive, and the icebergs and glaciers encountered are also the icebergs, but this has not hindered the pace of the people living in the East. As the saying goes, there are many people. Great. The labor force of the whole country has been invested in, and the immediate difficulties are not difficulties at all. This scene is happening in multiple places at the same time. From the satellite, one by one blizzard chariot, one by one Eastern people, is like a sharp sword. Although the progress is slow, the momentum to move forward is unabated. Chapter 184. At this moment, a 100-meter high towering into the sky, inside the warm spring weather observatory, Ying Ziyue stood in front of the wide temperature isolated window, quietly watching what happened under the city point after the temperature insulating window was swept by the extreme cold storm. It was covered with a thick layer of frost. Winding and twisting like a beautiful picture scroll, slowly unfolding and presenting it in front of everyone in the meteorological observatory point. Now this beautiful picture scroll is slowly melting with the outside temperature, indoor temperature and the special material of the window itself. Drop by drop converges into water, slowly dripping, and then, a clear picture appears in the wind before midnight. Ying Ziyue looked up. The mist in front of him, the sea of snow surging, and the sun gently pouring on the ground. During the Ice Age, light was so precious Ying Ziyue's vision tilted slightly, and as far as his eyes were, Ying Ziyue saw the fleets lined up one by one, slowly advancing. This is the convoy that came out of the inner city, a fleet of blizzard chariots, coming from major cities. The convoy at the beginning is constantly eradicating the icebergs and glaciers that block the road, and the convoy in the middle is eradicating both sides of the road. It is more convenient for the following teams to exercise. At this moment, the wind and snow were still whirling, falling from the sky, and the whole land was white. Ying Ziyue watched for a while, then turned around and issued an order with only one word: go. Soon, the blizzard chariot carrying the high-level figures of Ying Ziyue and his party drove out of the city point. After leaving the inner city, the oncoming temperature can freeze everything. After the report submitted by the Institute of Meteorology, the average temperature on this continent at this moment has reached sub-zero. Above the surface, even if everyone is wearing the most cold resistant and driving the most cold resistant tools, they can't hide anything. The coldness deep into the bone marrow, the whole person is almost frozen. If there is no continuous activity, then the whole person will be frozen into an ice sculpture and will be integrated into this land forever. But even so, since the order was issued, all the people in the east have been obliged to devote themselves to the nationwide infrastructure construction in the upsurge of comprehensive renovation. Winning the midnight ride in the blizzard chariot, scene by scene backwards. Winning midnight saw blizzard chariots rumbling past his car, one after another. The scene is extremely shocking. Watching from the satellite go, in a very stunning scene, blizzard chariots from various cities drove to where they were going. Squeaky deep traces were pressed out on the ground, crossed in disorder, and soon, they were covered by the falling snow. Moving on. When midnight passed a towering lighthouse and stopped for a while. There are countless lighthouses like this in the east, scattered on this land. In the long dark night, countless lighthouses are lit up, shining on this land, bringing light to the people living in the city, and they are also distributed along the coast. The lighthouses in the area also played a role in preventing disasters. The 10 kilometers long and 50 meters high separation wall played a particularly important role in protecting eastern people in coastal cities. When the tsunami came. When Ying midnight transferred to the snow country train, I saw a 10 kilometers long and 50 meters high separation wall protecting every coastal city. When the tsunami hit, the separation wall blocked the waves of the tsunami. Then, Ying Ziyue saw the artificial islands again, which were frozen on the sea at this moment. The severe cold storm swept across the ocean and the sea was completely frozen. The Liaohe and the North Sea are no exception. Therefore, the artificial islands that originally floated on the sea have been frozen on the sea. The islands, large and small, stand on the surface of the sea, large and small, forming a special landscape. After the people in the east have adapted to the weather and temperature at this time, they will gradually relocate to man-made islands. The artificial island in the plan to win the midnight is to prevent the continent from being gradually invaded by the ocean in the future. The place for human existence is severely tested, and artificial islands were born. Rumbly a loud voice pulled back the thoughts of winning midnight. Winning midnight saw the ice-breaking aircraft carrier digging in groups, like a beast roaring. As the snow country train drifted away, the ice-breaking aircraft carrier gradually became in Ying Ziyue's eyes. It becomes a small black spot and disappears from sight. Gradually, the cross-sea bridge appeared in the sight of Ying Ziyue. One of the super projects of the sea crossing bridge that spans the three seas. It has assembled the national labor force, as well as all the efforts of infrastructure, machinery, construction engineers, etc., and finally withstood the triple test of earthquake, tsunami, and extreme cold. Its existence should one of the greatest super projects recorded in human history is even greater than the Great Wall. Equally great is the steel wall of the Continental Barrier. It was built around the country and is 4,000 kilometers long. As the first barrier, it played a particularly important role during the 3 years of the Ice Age, especially in blocking waves of tsunamis. The impact protected the entire East. The East is invincible. Fight for the East. At this time, slogans sounded on the cross-sea bridge. The first wave of workers from coastal cities reached the cross-sea bridge, and banners were hung on their chariots. There is an engineering team from Beijing, and the banner says that the Beijing No. 1 engineering team has come to repair the cross-sea bridge. There is an engineering team from Shacheng, and the banner says that the Shacheng No. 6 engineering team has come to repair the cross-sea bridge. There is an engineering team from Qingcheng, and the banner, well done, says that the Qingcheng No. 10 engineering team has come to repair the cross-sea bridge. The leader Zhao Rugang, the brave and strong northern man wearing a thick winter suit and an oxygen mask, stood on the storm chariot, shouting, "The East is invincible, fight for the East." Behind him, a burst of shouts gathered together. "The East is invincible, fight for the East. The East is invincible, fight for the East. The East is invincible, fight for the East." Under this deafening sound, the banners hung on each Blizzard tank looked more colorful. This scene was really shocking. Winning midnight sitting in the snow country train seemed to be infected with it. A little excited. Boom. Snow country train, which has been speeding, traveled around the country, and they patrolled the entire East with Win Midnight Noon. Chapter 185. The snow country train, which has been speeding, circumnavigated the country, and they patrolled the entire East with Win Midnight. When they arrived at the site in Ying City, Ying Ziyue waited for a high-level train to get off the Zhugo train. At the gate of the station, red flag cars had been waiting for them. They were fully armed, and they greeted Ying Ziyue in the car, and then the leading car drove. Go to the Underground Research Institute. Speeding all the way, the pedestrians passing by on the street could not help but stop. They recognized these cars and all expressed their respect after the cars passed by. Tacitus early as the road wins midnight, he issued an order calling on all major scientific research executives to gather in the conference room and hold a meeting. When a somewhat messy sound resounded in the corridor, and when midnight arrived, most of the scientific research executives appeared in the conference room. These senior scientific research executives looked at Win Midnight with full respect, and their eyes were all focused on Win Midnight. Everyone eyeing Ziyue walked to his seat, but instead of sitting down, he signaled Zhao Guofeng to send a stack of documents to the top scientific research executives. When the major scientific research executives took the file in their hands, they just glanced at it, and a professor couldn't help but speak out. Smart core city plan, moving tracks. In the city? This the professors, deans, and senior research executives who were present couldn't help but utter 113 sounds of surprise. In front of them, the pictures made long ago were put on the big screen. At this moment, the East is still white, but as a picture opens, digital construction is coming. A pedestrian appears on the street. After the earphones on his ears flicker, in front of him, a holographic projection appears. The communication information is displayed on it. The projection was very brief, only about a minute, and everyone was silent. After watching it, the room was quiet, but everyone couldn't help being excited. This is where the future city plan is going. Holographic projection, digital construction, these plots that are only made with special effects in movies, etc., are already to be realized in real life. Although it cannot be achieved in a short time with the current technology, the most important thing the country lacks is talent. Zhao Guofeng was very excited after watching the projection and said, "Group leader, what should we do next? The smart core city is only one of the plans. The early disclosure of Win Midnight is to let everyone be prepared, recruit talents in advance, and make plans in advance. When the disaster stops completely, they can be put into practice. What they have to do now is to continue to deal with the disaster, using the spear of the sun to attack the shield of the sun. Everything has another side. Sometimes being too bad is not necessarily a bad thing. Winning the night, full of esoteric words, made the professors and deans present stare at each other. The whole country is undergoing post-disaster renovations in full swing, and a team of teams has received a new task: to build a glacier wall. The current time is 9 AM on February 6th of the 3 years of the glacier. From now on, the entire East is once again in a busy state, not only for post-disaster renovations, but also to continue to prevent disasters. When the West is still busy with the post-disaster order, and is busy and lacks manpower and plans for post-disaster reconstruction, not only is the order in the East intact, but all manpower is put into construction again. It was released by the media, and a broadcast rushed into hot searches. The prefix of the video was called, "Use the Spear of the Child to attack the shield of the child." The very interesting title immediately attracted countless netizens to watch. What appeared in front of everyone were icebergs and glaciers, as high as tens of meters, some even as high as hundreds of meters, undulating in this area of heaven and earth, as the snow fell, and under the extreme temperature, the snow became mountains. One by one. The temperature is extremely cold, and the world is whistling. The location of the video broadcast is Yanjing, the capital of the East. After experiencing the earthquake and the extreme cold, Yanjing is firmly rooted in place like a rock. This weather-beaten city is in full swing at this time. The project this time is impressively the construction of underground ice tunnels. In front of the video, a group of engineering teams wearing 3-layer cold-resistant suits and oxygen masks are constantly transporting machines used to excavate iceberg tunnels from the Underground Research Institute at a temperature of -180 degrees. This kind of machine is called an upgraded version of Mecha. It is not only used to dig through the iceberg and glacier channel, but also can accept various instructions. It is very flexible. Now finally comes in handy. 10 mechas were transported from the Underground Research Institute. The upgraded mechas, on its surface, with red and green as a representative color, appeared on the streets of Yanjing, which immediately attracted the attention of the people in the East. Most of the people who remained in the city were underage students and elderly people with limited mobility, and they looked at everything in front of them excitedly. A student waved his hands and said, "It's amazing, it's amazing." After the 10 mechas were transported from the Underground Research Institute, they cleared their own way, followed by huge transport trucks, which was very spectacular, drove out of Yanjing vigorously all the way to the outside of the city. At this moment, the sky has revealed a ray of light. It is no longer so dim and dust free. The wind is blowing, the snow is rustling down, mixing together, falling on the ground, blizzard chariots, mechas, etc. Never before. After a while, it was covered with a thick layer. The disaster has not stopped, continues, and the momentum is unabated, but this cannot stop the people in the East. What happened in Yanjing City is also happening in every city. The people in the East are wearing thick winter clothes, sitting on the blizzard chariot, driving the blizzard chariot to the icebergs and glaciers outside the city. The glaciers hundreds of meters high stood tall, covering the sun, and shrouded in the blizzard chariot, looking very dull and depressing. The wind was blowing over the icebergs and glaciers, making a sharp sound, which looked terrifying in the silent world. In front of these icebergs and glaciers, human machines are somewhat insignificant. Netizens who watch the video can see the contrast in this scene through the elongated satellite lens. Human beings are too small in front of these icebergs and glaciers in front of rows of snow-capped mountains. A giant blizzard chariot codenamed 01 parked at the forefront. Ying Ziyue got out of the car, wearing a cold-resistant suit and an oxygen mask. Under the roar of the world, he slowly waved the right hand of the start gesture. Boom. From now on, the project is on. Chapter 186. January 29th. The 5th year of the Ice Age, at 6 o'clock in the morning. 2 years have passed since the triple disaster swept the world. For human beings, it has been extremely long. For 2 years, and every day has been like a year in the past 2 years. Disasters still occurred uninterruptedly, raging on the earth uninterruptedly, but somehow it gave humans breathing time. The sky is Still dark, because the sky is not yet bright, as the sun shines less and less directly, and the continent is more dark. Endless darkness, the cold wind howled, and the blizzard pouring down from time to time, forming a spectacular scene point above the surface, is still minus 180 degrees, which has become a human forbidden zone, but the true human forbidden zone is more than 200 degrees below zero for the northern and southern glaciers. In the past 2 years, no one dares to step into the northern and southern glaciers, and every surviving country has issued warnings under the extreme temperature. Whether it is a blizzard or a rainstorm, they are all frozen, forming icebergs and glaciers after 2 years, in places where no humans have set foot, on the mainland, and on the sea. Icebergs and glaciers up to several hundred meters high have formed, and they are comparable to high-rise buildings. Looking from a distance, they are very majestic and magnificent. It is endless, rolling, and full of icebergs and glaciers. The entire surface of the earth is occupied by these icebergs and glaciers. Except for white, it is still white. There are no other colors in the entire sky. Similarly, the entire sky does not seem to have living creatures under these hundreds of meters of continuous icebergs and glaciers. A small group of mammoths are struggling to walk in the snow. The cold wind howled, mixed with blizzards, rustling and falling. In the extremely difficult and cold environment, each animal has undergone extreme degeneration in order to adapt to the current environment. The mammoth, which is 5 meters long, 3 meters high, and 1.5 meters long in size, has a fat body and weighs up to 6 tons. The mammoth with black hair and a thick layer of fat has undergone rapid changes in the past 2 years. Almost close to the ancestor mammoth. Rumbling sound of the machine resounded throughout this world, and at the same time, awakened this small group of mammoths. They quickly disappeared into this vast world, and continued to wander above other surfaces as the picture turned. An amazing scene happened. Every city gate was roaring in the cold wind, and the blizzard opened in the rustling snow. The first blizzard chariot hung a banner, and rumbling out of the city gate, one after another, one after another. Every blizzard chariot is bigger than it was 2 years ago, with more perfect cold protection measures, carrying more workers, rumbling on the ground, deep traces appearing in a straight line, driving toward the destination. This scene happened at every gate of the city, like an appointment. Ordinary people on the city wall watched this scene go out, drifting away and disappearing into the boundless world. The wind was heavier, the snow was heavier, and the weather was even colder. After the blizzard chariot began, a meteor also appeared outside the city. The colors of red and green are more vivid, and the upgraded meteor is also. They were even larger, and soon, along with the wind and snow, they disappeared from the sight of ordinary people on the city wall. Rumbly a louder sound rang. Is it the sound of the snow country train? No, different from the sound of the snow country train. As the eyes of the people in the east moved, huge amphibious glacier ships appeared on the vast snow. The giant amphibious iceberg ship that can slide on icebergs and sail on the ocean is larger than the civilized Nock. It is 500 meters long, 70 meters wide, and can reach a speed of 50 kilometers per hour and a volume of 658,362 cubic meters. Wait, the huge amphibious ice ship appeared in public view. This huge amphibious giant ship is breathtaking, surprising, and shocking. On top of it, it is carrying the tools used to build underground passages, various equipment, and even the huge crane is on it. The speed of the giant ship is accelerated in order to improve the efficiency of construction. After opening the road from the front, the giant iceberg ship can glide on the ice with great speed. Kaka in front of the blizzard chariot and the iceberg glacier that was not eradicated by the meteor. The giant iceberg ship pushed all the way across and soon reached its destination. Various equipment and cranes were unloaded one after another. The meteor and the blizzard chariot followed closely on both sides, and the construction began one after another without a moment of hesitation. I started to build these icebergs and glaciers about a few hundred meters high. The endless icebergs and glaciers are like giant barriers in front of everyone. Under the operation of various equipment, the icebergs shattered, collapsed, made a rumbling noise, fell on the ground, splashed a blizzard, and boiled zero fine flowers. The scene that happened was really spectacular. Under the operation of the meteor, the snow-capped mountain several hundred meters high collapsed in an instant, like tofu, fragile and vulnerable. Other machinery followed to repair the remaining glaciers, and gradually formed a general scale point boom. In the midst of the heat, a blizzard chariot arrived. Soon, a middle-aged man wearing a thick cold-proof cotton suit appeared from the blizzard chariot, and he was responsible for this. Zhang, the chief hero of the project. And behind him, other engineers also arrived. The crowd gathered at the first project site and looked at the large-scale icebergs and glaciers in front of them, and their faces were full of grimness. After a large-scale inspection, a group of engineers had a heated discussion in the blizzard car, and it was finally decided. Chief Engineer Zhao Gang came out of the blizzard chariot, braving the severe cold and snow. He began to direct the site engineering. These glaciers exist for only one purpose, and that is to build underground passages. Use the spear of the child to attack the shield of the child. Since these icebergs and glaciers have caused obstacles, why not use them? When the chief engineer received this task, he was amazed. So it can still be built like this. During the Ice Age, icebergs and glaciers are the most abundant, and these are the most indispensable ones. Watching the mecha standing in this iceberg and snow, watching the blizzard chariots have been waiting for a long time, and there are huge ice and snow giant ships. After a pause, Chief Engineer Zhao Gang yelled, "Keep on working." Rumble. At this moment, Kiki made a loud sound, and the people of the East united again to carry out a great engineering operation. And this picture is only the beginning. And then, in front of every city, every underground passage construction is taking shape. Death Chapter 187. While the construction of glacier underground passages is in full swing in the East, the West is another scene. The triple disaster swept across the globe in the early hours of February 1st 2 years ago, and suffered severe damage worldwide. According to the information disaster statistics later, the desert country known for its oil powers was buried in that tsunami. The Kawasaki country, which cooperated with the Eagle country on the space station, has only one poor island left with less than 100,000 people. There are only 2 states left in the Rose country, and the other states have completely disappeared in this triple disaster. The Eagle country is even more miserable. 30 bunkers and 25 bunkers have lost their signals, and only 5 bunkers are still struggling, and these 5 the damage to the bunker and the agricultural industry was extremely serious, and the following days were even more severely tested. Now, 2 years have passed. For the people of the East, these 2 years are 2 years of infrastructure construction, and 1 to 3 are 2 years of renovation. Industrial and agricultural industries are continuing to operate normally. The North Bihai warehouse and the Northern Ecological Park are being renovated and refurbished, providing vegetables and fruits, beef, pork and mutton, southern cotton padded clothes factories, and cold-proof oxygen mask factories for the whole country. All of them are continuously manufacturing. Snow country trains circulate around the city, bringing living supplies to every city, and the people of the East are doing it. Post-disaster reconstruction, renovation, and strengthening of defenses, life is still the same as usual. There is no difference. On every holiday, the whole family sits together and eats hot pot, watching the blizzard falling outside. In the 2 years after the disaster, all this went on in an orderly manner. After their posts, the people of the East quietly enjoyed the beauty of this ice age. Compared to the West, it's really miserable. Roddy, the minister of the Eagle country, has not had a good night's sleep in the past 2 years, and his diet has plummeted. The fruits that were previously available for consumption can only be enjoyed once a week or even half a month. The wine, that can only be enjoyed by high-level officials on weekdays, has become a luxury product. 2 years later, after an earthquake, the warehouse containing fine wines almost all collapsed, and only a small part was rescued. Therefore, these fine wines became the last beverages of the Eagle country. An ordinary bottle of wine directly became a luxury item, which is difficult to buy for $1,000. Roddy, minister of the Eagle country, also only had 2 bottles in his hands, as he took a sip every time for the past 2 years. One bottle is almost empty now. When did this ordinary drink become a luxury item? It should be kept before. Even ordinary people would not even bother. To taste it. Roddy held his glass and didn't taste a bit for a long time. Even if he tasted it, he just took a sip. Soon, this small cup was about to bottom out. His subordinate Mark stared at the wine glass in Roddy's hand, pursed his mouth unconsciously, and then continued to report the recent situation of the last 5 bunkers of the Eagle Nation and the situation in other countries after the triple disaster swept through. Most of the last remaining countries were buried in earthquakes, or tsunamis or extreme cold storms. Only the original developed countries of the Eagle Country can survive. 2 years later, these countries are still struggling with the intermittent disaster after another. The population of the West continues to plummet. The East has always believed in the fact that population is power. It is now finally reflected in the West. With the sharp decline in population, the agricultural industry and other industries are extremely short of population to fill. Therefore, everything is progressing slowly. How is Dongfang now? Finally, Roddy mentioned the East. After the triple disaster, Roddy put all his mind on how to save the country, so he paid little attention to the East. Mark paused, pondered his words, and said, Oriental, it's still the same as it is. Roddy turned his head, his eyes fell on Mark, and said, nothing is going on in Dongfang now. After the disaster, the East mobilized the whole country, carried out renovations, and carried out infrastructure construction. 2 years later, they are still the same. Roddy fell into silence. This doesn't seem like the Eastern style. Apart from renovations and infrastructure, is there nothing else? Could it be that the East has nothing to do? Has stopped, helplessly waiting for the disaster to come? Minister Rose Country thinks so too. The East has been too quiet in the past 2 years, except for renovations or innovations. No project has been reported. It seems that the East has nothing to do. Minister Rose Country took a deep breath, then turned to face the deputy minister, minister of machinery, and other ministers, and said, Dongfang has stopped their footsteps, which means that they have nothing to do in the next disaster. Or, Dongfang, the resources of the country have reached the point of exhaustion. Yes, the resources of the East have also reached the point where the mountains and rivers are exhausted. After all, the projects in their country are too huge, and the resources consumed are also zero. Yes, the East has nothing to do. The topics discussed by the Minister of the Rose Country and the Minister of the Eagle Country were also discussed on YouTube, Twitter. Above the surface, no country exists. The East has reached the point where it is exhausted. It is only a matter of time before it disappears. John, it's really a pity. I kind of like the country of the East. Himda, no country can escape the disaster of the Ice Age, and so is the East. Rocky Point. When the only remaining Western population was talking about it, the East did not speak at all. They preferred to prove themselves with practical actions. As time passed by. The 5th year of the Ice Age at 8 o'clock on April 29th. 3 months passed. The entire East was renovated as early as January, and all defenses were strengthened, and then began to return to the team one after another. After a week of rest, it was put into a new project again, the construction of the underground passage. With the addition of more manpower, the construction of the entire passage has been accelerated. Ying Ziyue stood on a fence that was 100 meters high, and as he watched, full-scale glacial icebergs appeared in front of him. Rumbly, a huge iceberg carrying tower cranes, various mechanical steels, and other materials appeared in the sight of when midnight. Afterwards, all kinds of steel were unloaded, and from a distance, busy people were like little ants winning. Midnight took the blizzard tank again, and appeared in front of the underground passage that was still under construction. In my ears, the blizzard tank and the mechas made a rumbling sound. At the entrance, the construction had been completed long ago, and a brand new passage extended downwards. No one knows, nor does the West know. The East has begun an epic stalwart project. Chapter 188. Ying Ziyue took the blizzard tank again, and appeared in front of the underground passage that was still under construction. In my ears, the blizzard tank and the mecha made a rumbling sound. At the entrance, the construction had been completed long ago, and new passages appeared downward extend. Ying Ziyue stopped in front of the passage, and walked in. After walking in, the passage is still under construction, extending in all directions, and each road leads to a different direction. Various rumbling noises continued to be heard in the passage, and the blizzard chariot kept passing in front of when midnight. Ying Ziyue didn't go in because it was inconvenient, but even if he stood at the entrance of the passage, he could feel the shock brought by this project. The construction of underground passages created by glaciers and icebergs is unprecedented in history. It is built by the labor force of the whole country, and it has gathered the efforts of all engineers. It will become another super project in the history of Eastern civilization. The 5th year of the Ice Age. At 6 AM on July 29th. The sky was still dim, as usual. The cold wind mixed with a blizzard, whizzing past. Above the surface, it is still more than 180 degrees below zero, extremely cold, extremely icy, and freezing everything. From now on, Dongfang has entered the final finishing work. The construction of underground glacier passages and the construction of the glacier separation wall have entered the final stage of the super project invested with the power of the whole country in the past 6 months. A blizzard chariot came to the underground glacier passage outside Ying City, and Chief Engineer Zhao Gang appeared at the entrance of the passage wearing a thick cold-proof suit. In this long dark night, a piece of light shines at the entrance of the passage. Not far from the entrance of the passage, a tall lighthouse stands tall. The light shining on this piece of land provides great convenience for the project under construction, and therefore, the construction of glacier passages can be carried out day and night. Bright as day, the scenes in front of me are exceptionally clear. Every blizzard tank passed by Zhao Gang. It made a huge noise, and on the blizzard tank, it carried important materials, and the materials needed for the construction of underground passages, one after another. A car is transporting uninterruptedly. Chief Engineer Zhao Gang gazed at everything in front of him with satisfaction. It won't be long before another super project is about to be born. Boom. Beicheng number 1 is here to support Yanjing. Shacheng number 6 is here to support Yanjing. Heicheng on the 19th came to support Yanjing. Another loud sound rang, and blizzard chariots with banners hung in front of the vehicles appeared. The blizzard chariot in coastal cities is here. The construction of underground passages extends inward from coastal cities, and the passage of coastal cities has been completed. Eastern people in coastal cities rush to the inner city without any rest. At this time, the unity of the people in the east is finally manifested. Everyone is gathering firewood and the flames are high. When the coastal city separation wall is built, all inland cities will participate, but now the inland cities need to be built, and the people in the coastal cities are willing to dedicate themselves. Part of the force. As people in the east, they are all in the same family. If one party is in trouble, all parties support. Team leader. Unexpectedly, there was still midnight among the crowd. Zhao Gang screamed excitedly. Ying Ziyue took a look and said, "Comrade Zhao Gang, you have worked hard." Zhao Gang became more excited, as if being praised, raised his hand and said, "Fighting for the East, no hard work, you have worked hard too." Ying Ziyue said to the people behind, "It's not hard to fight for the East." All the people said almost in unison. Their voices were deafening, resounding in this world. "Okay, then continue to do it." When the midnight voice, go on, come on." The arrival of midnight is inspiring, and everyone is working enthusiastically again. With the addition of more people from coastal cities, the process of underground passages has accelerated again. This super project involving the whole country represents that the East has once again entered a new stage. From the new novel group 872,847,971 this group updates daily novels. From the new novel group 872,847,971, August 29th, the 5th year of the Ice Age. A message quietly appeared on the hot search. Another super project in the East, the construction of the underground passages completed. Netizens were in an uproar. Many people only know that Dongfang is carrying out a project, but did not expect it to be an underground project. Netizens instantly think of projects such as subways, Is it related to subways? When the video was broadcast, it slowly appeared in front of the netizens, in front of the ordinary people, in front of the TV. Everyone held their breath, and the scene in front of them was shocked to the point of making no sound. At the beginning of the video, a blizzard chariot slowly appeared in the sky. As the camera zoomed in, Yang Jing welcomes you 5 characters appeared above an ice cave point with the entry of this blizzard chariot. A whole new world appeared in front of the people of the East Point in the vast space. The vault is white, and the walls on both sides are also white. The endless whiteness appeared in the sight of the people in the East Point. Is this caused by glaciers? In front of the TV, someone finally recovered and asked questions. Glacier build. How can this be? Are those icebergs and glaciers not an obstacle to human beings? People can't wait to eradicate these icebergs and glaciers. Who knows, these icebergs and glaciers are actually being used. So, this is the previous title of attacking the shield of the sun with the spear of the sun. The people in front of the TV suddenly realized, and then they watched again with their breath held. The underground glacier tunnel has a huge space, and can even accommodate huge iceberg ships. At the same time, various facilities are complete. Every 10 miles, a small lighthouse appears, illuminating the underground glacier tunnel. The white and smooth ground, the huge dome, under the light of the lighthouse, forms a beautiful scene, as if you are in a beautiful palace. Blizzard's chariot continued to move forward. I don't know how long it has been driving, and the road was unimpeded. The 5 characters welcome to White City appeared. Beicheng? Isn't this Jinqing? How is this going? The people saw the blizzard chariot turn into White City. At the same time, there were several openings on both sides of the passage, which said, Shacheng, Heicheng, waiting to welcome you. After the explanation, everyone understands that these underground passages connect each city and provide convenience for the transportation of each city. In the future, if anyone wants to go to Beicheng, Shacheng, and Heicheng, they will never need to pass through those icebergs and glaciers. It is really shocking. Everyone did not expect that one day, during the Ice Age, they could also be like the civilization period. They only need to drive a blizzard chariot to safely and quickly reach every city. Chapter 189. After the construction of the glacier underground passage, huge storms were set off in the East Point. This is one of the unprecedented super projects in Eastern history. Comparable to super projects such as the steel wall of the mainland barrier, the sea crossing bridge, and the snow country train. Its completion represents that the East is in traffic, and the speed can be comparable to or even surpassing the civilization period. Because it can accommodate the huge iceberg ship, there is no need to worry about traffic jams, and no more worry about wasting every day on the commute to get off work. It can accommodate 30 blizzard tanks that are huge and can pass through at the same time. No such super project has ever appeared in the tunnel. This project once again brought together the power of the whole country to connect all the cities and build the traffic underground. In the storm, the snow is flying, and the sub-zero weather, people can freely drive the blizzard chariot and go in and out of every city. No need to worry anymore. In this kind of weather, passing by icebergs and glaciers may encounter danger at any time, making it difficult to move. The most important thing is that the speed of the East is far beyond all existing countries. The convenient transportation provides convenience for everyone. When infrastructure and transportation of materials are needed, this glacier underground passage is simply fast. More than 10 times. In the Ice Age, speed is life. Even if it is 1 second faster, it may play a key role. Also, this underground glacier tunnel can withstand everything, as long as it does not exceed a magnitude 7 earthquake, and can be used as a temporary shelter. The underground passage, which is scheduled to be officially opened for all citizens on September 4th, is still 1 day away. At the moment, all of the hot searches in the East are all about the topic of underground passage construction. This movement finally attracted the attention of the West. The first thing to notice is that senior figures from the West, the Rose Country, the Eagle Country, and others have been sending people to pay attention to the East. However, because of the reconstruction after the disaster in the past 2 years, they have not paid too much attention. The East is too quiet, which is somewhat inconsistent with the style of the East, but the Eagle Country and the Rose Country all understand it as the East has nothing to do. Who knows? As soon as the East comes out, it is Wangzan. When the senior management played a video shot by the Special Research Institute on the big screen, everyone was silent. With local materials, an endless passage created by glaciers and glaciers. Towering domes, wide on both sides, underground tunnels that can accommodate dozens of cars at the same time in the civilization period slowly appeared in front of all the high-rise buildings. Everyone was silent. At this moment, they don't know what language to use to describe their mood at the moment. When did the East build this project? Why don't they know? Didn't it mean that Dongfang has been renovating and building infrastructure for the past 2 years? Is it fake? A distance away, there is a lighthouse shining on the underground tunnel, which is extremely bright, as if the underground tunnel in the civilized period reappears. But more shocking than the underground tunnel in the civilized period is that it is made of glacial icebergs. The sturdy iceberg turned into a miraculous decay. When the West was still struggling to survive underground, the East used the glacier to build an underground tunnel. What a great ambition and so much power. The East actually realized it all. Roddy's eyes were red, and at this moment, he didn't want to admit that he was jealous. East Roddy turned his head and reprimanded his subordinates. When was the project in the East built? How come there is no movement at all? The subordinate's face is ugly. It should be this period of time. What do you mean? Isn't the East always in infrastructure construction and renovation all the time? This similar scene is happening in every remaining country, and countries such as Rose Country and Kawasaki Country have been questioning again and again. Every high-level person in the existing country is full of question marks. When did the East complete this super project? Still, this is just a simulation. After all, this project is too great for the East to do. Dongfang has been renovating and building infrastructure for the past 2 years, and has no other resources to build such a super project. It's not just the high-level discussions in the West, but the Western scholars, the bottom, and so on are all talking point, while the people in the West were still struggling to survive. Another super project was born in the East. With such a sharp contrast, all the people in the West were sour. Professor Mark, an economics professor from the academic level, said, "This must be a simulation. The East cannot have the resources to build projects." According to economics, the human and material resources of the East have reached the point where they are exhausted. Yes, this must be a simulation. There can be no resources to build in the East. Jack, Dongfang is self-deceiving and deceiving others. Don't struggle anymore. You can catch it quickly. Only the underground is the safest. The complete destruction of the Dongfang is only a matter of time. Tina. Unexpectedly, there are still people who think that the underground is the safest. When this girl named Tina commented, many people agreed that they believed that their country's buildings were the safest from beginning to end, just because the disaster was too powerful. No country can survive this situation. There are still 2 hours before the official passage for all people on September 4th. At this moment, all cities are brightly lit. Almost everyone did not sleep, and everyone was excited about what was about to happen next. In an ordinary household in one of the residential buildings in Ying City, at this moment, the mother of the Melona Yi stayed up all night excitedly. "Mom, get it. Mom, you'd better rest. It's too late. Is this true? Is it true?" the old mother asked excitedly. Li nodded repeatedly and repeated, "It's really true. We can go to Beijing and visit my sister and their family." In the civilization period, because of the advanced transportation, everyone can take the car and plane to travel to and from different cities at any time. But when disaster strikes, this becomes a luxury, or it is impossible to see one side in a lifetime. A daughter who marries far away, a student who travels far away. All were blocked by icebergs and glaciers in another city. It has been 5 years, and the relatives have been separated for 5 years. Now, they can finally meet again and embrace Ren. All of this is because of the underground tunnels, which can travel autonomously in this ice age, shuttle through various cities. Great super projects. As Orientals, they are so proud of them. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190. In the 5th year of the Ice Age, at 23:59 on September 3rd, in 1 second, the time will become September 4th, and a great day is about to be born. The completion of the construction of the underground passage means that the East has once again entered a new stage. After ups and downs, another super project integrating the national labor force has once again added a strong ink to the Ice Age point before the opening of full traffic at 0000 hours on the 4th. At the entrance of each city, blizzard chariots had been parked, neat rows of blizzard chariots, waiting at every entrance early point. The inner cities of Yanjing, Nancheng, and the capital city, and the coastal cities of Beicheng, Shacheng, Qingcheng, etc., are brightly lit at the entrance of the underground glacier passage of each city, illuminating every entrance point under this brightly lit. Every city, regardless of identity or status, the blizzard chariots that have been reasonably arranged and allocated, are neatly lined up in a row, waiting for the opening of the underground passage. At this moment, the people in the East have really waited for too long, especially after knowing that the underground passage is completed. Everyone's heart is excited and surging. In the days of waiting, life is like a year 120. Finally this moment is coming. Banners were hung up on each blizzard chariot. The banner said which city it came from, such as Yanjing, Beicheng, etc., and on the back of the blizzard chariot, there were their respective numbers, like the license plate of the civilization period. Everything is reasonably arranged. Every Eastern citizen who is responsible for driving and acting as a driver is mobilizing his hands at this moment. This feeling is like opening the nationwide infrastructure and pulling everyone to the destination point at 0000 hours on September 4th. The lighthouse at the entrance of the underground passage flickered, as if it was opening a new era. Rumbling at this moment, all blizzard chariots were launched almost at the same time. Then, in the next second, all vehicles drove into the passage, and a new and vast world appeared in front of everyone. When you feel it with your own eyes, you can no longer describe it in any language. It is too vast, too shocking. I don't know how many meters tall. The dome is under the light of the lighthouse. It is as white as ice crystals, glowing with light, and the wide sides are also the same. Beautiful like a fairyland. It is so beautiful. Everyone feels like they have come to a scenic spot in the civilization period. Everywhere is made of icebergs and glaciers. It is dreamlike, and the long tunnel is very spectacular at first glance. About 20 miles or so, the first traffic light appeared. The underground tunnels are perfectly built in accordance with the traffic order of the civilized period. Not only the traffic lights, but also the north, south, east, west traffic routes, as well as shelters, etc. All facilities are planned to avoid traffic accidents. Rumble after the red light turns on, all blizzard tanks will stop in turn, and when the green light turns on, all blizzard tanks will restart, and they will follow each car body neatly, or stand side by side. One after another drove on the ice, mixed with splashing fog, breaking through the fog, and making a rumbling sound. Looking from a distance, it was very shocking and amazing. After this scene was filmed by satellite, it was posted on the internet and on TV. Everyone was very excited, except for the West. Just before, many people in the West thought that this was just a simulation of a project in the East, and they had no resources available. Then, a real scene happened in front of every Western citizen. The broad dome, the crystal-like walls, and the iconic traffic lights. The East not only built this kind of project, but also arranged all kinds of traffic rules. Is the East going to completely restore the construction of underground tunnels in the civilized period? Western people are really sour. Do they think this is over? No. An even more amazing scene happened afterwards. A huge iceberg ship appeared, with a length of 500 meters, a side width of 70 meters, a speed of 50 kilometers per hour, and a volume of 362 cubic meters. A huge amphibious ice boat appeared in public viewpoint in this scene. Both Western and Eastern people were silent at the same time. This ship is really huge, bigger than all the ships they have seen, and spectacular. I don't know how much material can be carried on it, and this ship can travel on ice at the same time. This operation is also too good. Got it. What is Dong Fang doing? Doesn't it mean that they have no resources available? Oh my god, how did the East build such a big ship? That economist, get out with me. Didn't you say that the East is exhausted? On the tubing, on Twitter, it was completely boiling, and everyone was stunned by Dan Fang's operation point, but this is far from over then. Not just one ship, the second ship, the third ship, and the giant iceberg ship also appeared. Point behind these huge iceberg ships, there are blizzard chariots driving on the left and right, escorting them. In contrast between the two, the blizzard chariot appears very small, and at the same time, it also sets off the iceberg giant ship even more huge and more shocking. Point this same scene is happening on the passages of every city. The Yanjing Passage, the Beicheng Passage, and the Qingcheng Passage are all happening, and the same scene is being staged. Point the East not only lived on the surface of the Forbidden Zone called the Forbidden Zone by Western humans during this ice age, but also had to recreate the civilization of the past. The underground tunnel was just the beginning. Point Ying Ziyue was also in these teams. He sat on the blizzard chariot and set off from Yanjing to Beicheng. Point from his side, blizzard chariots passed by, fast or slow, but they all drove to the destination they were going to. Point rumbly a huge iceberg ship passed by them, and Ying Ziyue raised his head and looked up. At this moment, even he couldn't help but marvel. Point one ship, 2 ships, 3 ships, until they disappeared in the midnight and then regained their sight. Point rumbling. I don't know how long it has been driving, it's about a few hours. On the wide opening, a few big characters were written. Beicheng welcomes you. Point Beicheng is here. Point without the existence of icebergs and glaciers, no blizzards, cold winds, and only the sound of rumbling blizzard chariots along the way, and orderly traffic. The East achieved true freedom of movement during the Ice Age. Point this scene should be recorded in the annals of human history forever. East, Invincible. Chapter 191. The construction of the underground tunnel was completed on August 29th in the 5th year of the Ice Age, connecting the whole East and connecting the inland coastal cities. The unprecedented underground tunnel was officially opened on September 4th. And the East realized real traffic under the harsh environment of the Ice Age. Point the huge iceberg was created by glaciers, exhausting the nation's labor force, and using huge resources. From then on, for ordinary people, going to every city is no longer a dream, but a real realization. From above the surface, going underground, from the previous days and nights to a few hours, you can reach the city you want to reach. Point on September 11th. The 5th year of the Ice Age, a full week has passed since the underground passage opened. Point during this week, all the hotly searched topics revolved around the construction of underground tunnels. For intense discussions, Western people have witnessed the opening of underground tunnels, and all cities are connected to each other, making it easier to pass through than in civilization. Point since the opening of traffic on the first day, the entire Eastern Underground has been in a continuous state. Blizzard chariots are speeding through the construction of underground tunnels, and lighthouses illuminate the underground tunnels, and traffic lights are flashing to direct the vehicles coming and going. On each channel, there are license plates from Beicheng, Qingcheng, and Yanjing, etc., in an endless stream, transporting important materials, and every passenger in the East. Point the giant iceberg ship shuttles at a specific time. At this moment, all the blizzard tanks are lined up to make way for the giant iceberg ship. The space is huge, and there is no need for the blizzard tank to drive out of the tunnel. Point the same is true for the second day. Point the same is true on the third day. Point it was the same until the 7th day. Point nothing happened, such as a glacier collapse, causing an underground tunnel to collapse, such as a lighthouse's sudden power failure causing the underground tunnel to become dark, and so on. Special circumstances did not happen. Point the underground passage project in the East, like a solid rock, has a vast space and a perfect dome, which is like a dream. It provides extremely convenient passage for every blizzard chariot, mecha, and giant iceberg ship. Point, and above their surface, the world changed color, the cold wind roared across the sky, and the blizzard fell steadily. As far as the eyes were, there was a vast expanse of whiteness, and the whole world seemed to have only this color left. Point as the camera turned around, a few large-sized wild wolves with long fur ran in the white sky. They seemed to be chasing something. Upon closer inspection, they turned out to be a few snow rabbits. This is in the Ice Age. In the extreme weather below, People can't believe that there are still animals living on the surface. This is the scene where the West acquires the East from the satellite point. Roddy, minister of the Eagle Country, saw this scene with a complicated expression. Point in the West, a bottle of ordinary wine has become a luxury item. You can only eat fresh fruits once a week, not to mention meat, and you can enjoy it once a week. In such a difficult environment, there are living animals on the surface of the East, running everywhere. This Roddy was in a complicated mood. Roddy hasn't spoken for a long time. The wine glass in his hand has been deformed by him, and he sips it for a long time, and there is still half a glass of wine shaken out. The deputy minister couldn't help reminding, "It's spilled, minister." Roddy came back to his senses and wiped the water droplets from his fingers. Slightly distressed. With a straight look, Roddy said, "Deputy Minister, how is our space station plan?" The space station project is a cooperation between Eagle Country and Kawasaki Country. It has been implemented since a few years ago. How to survive in space, how to develop agriculture in space, how to increase oxygen concentration, and a series of survival measures has now passed. It took 2 or 3 years. In fact, Roddy has been paying attention to the space station project. He may not pay attention to what he eats today and what to drink tomorrow. He may not pay attention to the East. He may not pay attention to other things, but the space station project must be listed first and listed as a key concern because it is related. The next direction of the Eagle Country. The Eagle Nation has no other retreat. There are only 5 bunkers struggling to support it. If these 5 bunkers also disappear, it means that the Eagle Nation will disappear forever on this land from now on. No, there is also the space station. Lonely, Roddy's remaining hope is weighed on the space station. 0 Find flowers. Simply, the news from the deputy minister is good. The oxygen concentration on the space station has increased again. Some plants can survive and produce results, and the probability of human survival has increased again, and everything is going for the better. Roddy suddenly felt exuberant. See it? The space station is the only hope for mankind to survive. There is no extreme cold, no blizzard, no earthquake, no tsunami, and there is the bliss of mankind. This is the best good news in the past few days. Since the East announced the construction of the underground passage, people in Roddy and other countries have begun to have a crisis in their hearts. They no longer dare to despise the East, because with the 5 years have passed, the East is still standing on the surface, and the project continues to develop, which is enough for them to pay attention. 0 Roddy raised his head and drank a glass of wine, ready to announce the good news to the only remaining people in the West, to boost morale. At this time, the deputy minister looked hesitant. "What's the matter? Hesitating?" Say, after getting permission from the minister, the deputy minister informed Roddy and other professors, dean and other senior officials of the Dongfang plan he knew about. Build an iceberg barrier. After the construction of the underground passage was completed and opened, another Dongfang project was included in the plan. The construction of underground passages is made of icebergs and glaciers. Many technologies are used, such as machinery, architecture, natural sciences and so on. Just taking locations and drawings, all engineers in this area are dispatched, not to mention construction and machinery. Countless engineers have exhausted all their efforts, and in the subsequent construction, all the people in the East will participate, in order to form the current scale. It can be said that the construction of this underground glacier tunnel has exhausted the power of the whole country. According to Western estimates, the East is in within the next year. There should be no resources to build other projects, but the East has to start building iceberg barriers without waiting for a rest. Dongfang, what are you going to do? Death Chapter 192. Red flag cars were speeding along the streets of Yanjing Point. Before reaching a residential building at the destination, the vehicles stopped one after another. A cheerful young man walked out of the residential building, and the soldiers guarding on both sides carefully greeted him into the car as the vehicle started rumbling and soon left the gate of the community. Ying Fu and Ying Ziyue took a rare day off and personally sent Win Midnight away. Watching the vehicle disappear, Ying Fu sighed. "It's really a tiger father without dogs." Ying Mu smiled and said, "Are you complimenting your son or complimenting yourself?" Ying's father was teased by his wife, and his embarrassment was concealed with a laugh. When Ying Ziyue, who got in the vehicle, went to the underground research institute again. After some repairs, Ying Ziyue regained his spirit, and the black pupils 22 were bright and clear. With steady steps, the energetic young man returned. Pushing open the door, the professors, deans, chief engineers and other scientific researchers who had been waiting in the conference room all looked over. Everyone can't hide their excitement, because they know that every time they win a meeting in the underground research institute, every time they win midnight, it means that a new project will appear, or a new action will be prepared. The right hand man, Zhao Guofeng, took Win Midnight to the first place, and he watched Win Midnight with a little excitement. Ying Ziyue looked around for a week, swept across the faces of professors and other researchers in front of these respectable scientists, who don't know how old they are, and said, "Everyone, I believe everyone should have guessed this. The purpose of the meeting, huge obstacles blocking the front of mankind, various glaciers and icebergs turned into underground tunnels on August 29th, and officially passed on September 4th, until the 11th. After more than 10 days of comprehensive performance, we are perfect. We have verified what it means to attack the shield of the sun with the spear of the sun, and we will continue to implement it in the future." What is the spear of the sun? Attack the shield of the sun, building an iceberg barrier from now on. Then Ying Ziyue raised his voice and said. When the voice fell, all the professors, deans, and researchers couldn't help getting excited and said in unison, "Oh, yes." On September 11th, the 5th year of the Ice Age, after the construction of another large super project, underground tunnel in the Ice Age was completed and opened. After a period of 1 week later, Fang invested in a new project, building an iceberg barrier. An economist in the West once said that in the past 2 years, the resources of the East have reached the point where they have reached the limit of their innovation and infrastructure, and they can no longer have the resources to build new projects. However, the completion of the vigorous underground passage tunnel construction not only represents the real freedom of passage in the East, but also makes the West realize that the resources of the East are far more abundant than they thought, and everyone in the West believes that the East is in the underground passage. When the construction is completed, and all resources are exhausted, when all resources are in short supply, the East announces the start of construction of a new project. Boom. Just a week ago, many factories were established in the South, mainly using cotton, steel, and other resources to produce these materials, such as various steel materials for the separation wall, various materials for airships and lighthouses. The required machinery, etc., are all produced from the southern factory and then transported by snow country trains to all parts of the country. Well, now that there is an underground passage connecting each city, there is another shortcut in terms of transportation, and the efficiency of the entire link is once again improved. All employees, including the new plant manager, are very dry. On this day, all branch factories have received the task assigned by the factory director. This has just slowed down for a week, and there are tasks coming down. The branch manager guessed before they got the documents. After they got the documents, everyone opened their mouths. Build a glacier barrier. I'm not mistaken. How can I do this? These are icebergs and glaciers, each of which is a few hundred meters high, and so high, if it collapses, it can crush hundreds or even thousands of people. Yeah. I thought the construction of underground tunnels is already very powerful, but I didn't expect to build a glacier barrier. The country. This is a big move. On each person's drawing, it is written what each person is responsible for. Finally, after mixing together, after the iceberg barrier is built in front of each city, they will all be connected, just like a 4,000-kilometer continental barrier steel wall. How magnificent and shocking the steel wall of the continental barrier is. The same is true for the glacier barrier, even more so than the steel wall of the continental barrier, because the temperature of the continental barrier steel wall has not dropped to 180 degrees when the continental barrier steel wall was built. The environment is not as cruel as it is now. Except for convenient transportation and improved efficiency, everything is much more cruel than when the steel wall was built. Not to mention, the buildings they want to build are all formed by icebergs and glaciers. The hard ice can only be removed with mechas, and some details need to be completed by humans. The extreme ice cold of more than 180 degrees below zero can freeze everything, and you can imagine how cruel and test people point. It is no wonder that the head of each branch factory can't hide the shock and surprise on his face. Why do you find the task difficult? The factory director said with a smile. It's not difficult to say, isn't it a bit contrary to your intentions? The branch manager murmured, guaranteed to complete the task. In the next second, the branch director said with a strong voice, guaranteed to complete the task, guaranteed to complete the task, guaranteed to complete the task. The heads of the branch factories present here have stubborn faces full of fortitude, and they shouted loudly one by one. Subsequently, the tasks were dispatched separately. After these tasks are broken up and assigned to the workers, everyone is responsible for different processes. So they don't know what these things will do. Some workers asked the branch manager curiously. The branch manager looked into the distance with a look of infatuation and said, after it is completed, another miracle will be born in the East. On September 4th, when all the people in the East were still immersed in the shock and joy of the construction of the underground passage, on the day the passage was opened, another super project was issued internally for preparation. The glacier barrier that shocked everyone, including the West, was officially launched on September 11th. Chapter 193. On September 11th, the 5th year of the Ice Age, another super project in the East was announced. An announcement swept the entire East. Then it caused a sensation. All the people in the East boiled again. When the news spread to the West, all the people in the West were stunned by the crazy actions made by the East. After that, the glacier barrier boarded the hot search in the West, causing huge condemnation. The new construction of the glacier barrier was announced at 9 o'clock on September 11th, the 5th year of the Ice Age, and officially launched at 2 p.m. The sky is whizzing, the cold wind is mixed with blizzard, and the sky is shining. And the sky is shining. The entire sky is in a hazy state. Looking from the residential building, all this is like a dream point. After leaving the residential building, even wearing cold-proof clothes and an oxygen mask, he could not resist the coldness deep into the bone marrow. At this moment, above the surface, it is still in the extreme cold state of minus 180 degrees above the surface. Apart from the East, no country can survive in this state, let alone the birth of super projects one after another. 02 When the camera was turned around, I came to the center of the inner city of Yanjing. Countless airships were parked in the center of the airship, arranged in rows and neatly arranged. On each military green airship, the words Yan and Huan were written in bold fonts. Very domineering. At the entrance of the airship center, men and women kept appearing, most of them young men. After they registered, they all walked into the line and lined up in neat rows before boarding the ship. Each of them was filled with excitement and excitement. Soon, all the teams were assembled, and Zhao Qigang, the new chief of the airship center, stood in front of these people, looking at the tender and unfamiliar faces in the team, and was silent for a few minutes. After that, he only said one sentence, "Comrades, guys, you have worked hard, for the East, for the country, for the people. No hard work." The youth opposite Zhao Qigang roared loudly, "It is good, but," the person in charge Zhao Qigang said loudly, without any nonsense. He watched all these people board the spacecraft. Then, when the time came at 2 p.m., Zhao Qigang raised his hand. Go, boom. Then, a spectacular scene happened. Countless military green airships rose into the sky, forming a spectacular scene, and then flew out of the airship center at 2 p.m. This scene happened in every city, inner cities, coastal cities, etc. At this moment, countless airships took off from the center of the airship, and then they all flew to the south. Their first destination was to go to the southern factory and load the airship with the materials needed to build the glacier. Fly to the same destination. When hordes of military green airships all appeared in the sky, countless people from the east on the ground watched. Look at it, it's an airship. Everyone said as if they were used to this scene, but they were different from their usual moods, because all the people in the east knew that the airships were all dispatched today. For what point the project comparable to the steel wall of the mainland barrier was officially opened at 2 o'clock, and these airships were all dispatched for this project. When the first team of airships arrived at the southern branch factory, someone had been waiting long ago. The two people said to each other, "It was hard," and then they went into the load without stopping. Then, the first team of airships was loaded, soared into the air, and flew to the same destination where all the airships went. Zhao Gang, the chief engineer in charge of the glacier barrier, reached the destination point early. After he arranged it, Zhao Gang raised his head and looked to the south. As time passed, small green dots appeared one after another. Finally come. On January 1st, the 6th year of the Ice Age, 2 or 3 months have passed since the construction of the glacier barrier started. In these 2 or 3 months, the East has invested non-stop manpower and various resources for the construction of the glacier barrier, not afraid of the severe cold, not afraid of the cold. The people all over the country have invested in the front line, crawling at the foot of the iceberg and fighting day and night. Very hard. January 1st. This day is a special day for the East. During the civilization period, the whole family reunited together to celebrate the festival, and it was so happy every year. After entering the Ice Age, this festival has also been preserved. Every year, the whole family gathers together, sitting in front of the hot pot, eating the hot pot and drinking beer, and admiring the snow scene outside. Every year, except this year, because of an engineering task this year, the labor force across the country was left outside. Only the old, weak, sick and disabled were left at home, guarding the stove and watching TV. Hard work. It's not hard work, it's worth it for the East. If there is no East, there will be no home. After interviews, those who are fighting on the front line speak their aspirations under the cold-proof mask. I don't know whose father, whose son, and whose husband is. His voice is strong and strong. Although he is very tired, the project can be done when he thinks of him doing more. To complete a little more, this person got motivation again, and after the interview was over, he quickly joined the construction of the project. The people in front of the TV seemed to be inspired, very excited and proud. The front is constantly struggling, and the rear is not idle. Each of them performs their own duties. The students study hard and master more knowledge to serve the motherland in the future. Special office workers and work hard to contribute their every strength. Older people use their civilized sewing techniques to sew a pair of gloves or scarves, even if they know it is not very useful. Up and down in the East, everyone is united and contributes every effort to the East project. To celebrate this holiday, Dongfang broadcasted a live video at 12 o'clock noon on January 1st. The live broadcast location was in front of one of the iceberg barriers looking down from an altitude of 5,000 meters. The Earth is a vast expanse of whiteness, like an ice hockey puck, and as the camera zooms in, one of the continents is very special, and this continent is the East. The 4,000 meter steel barrier guards the entire East. It became a landmark building during the Ice Age. When it comes to the East, the first thing everyone thinks of is the mainland steel barrier. In the eyes of Westerners, it is nothing more spectacular than the mainland barrier steel wall. And shocking. And now, projects comparable to the steel barriers of the mainland are rising from the ground and gradually spreading to every eastern city, including all eastern cities. Chapter 194. Rumble. On this special day, the day when the whole family is reunited, all laborers across the country are racing against time outside, contributing their every strength to the super project, and the hard-working spirit from the ancestors is fully demonstrated in all the people in the East. As the team leader, Ying Ziyue, the guardian of the great country in the eyes of the people of the East, did not choose to reunite with his family. On this day, for him, almost everyone is working on the iceberg barrier project day and night without fear of hard work, not afraid of the cold. How could he continue to stay at home as the team leader? The parents of Win Midnight are also the same. As commanders of different departments, they are also fighting on the front line. For them, the days of reunion are still long. The country is at home, and there is a home, if there is a country, coming out of the Yanjing Underground Scientific Research Institute, driving on the wide street, raindrops mixed with snowflakes dripped from the sky, and people who were still walking outside were walking hurriedly with umbrellas, made of special materials. At this moment, the city of Yanjing is sparsely populated, because the labor force of the whole country is outside, and the rest are in the room, watching the live broadcast content. Only a small number of people are walking on the streets of Yanjing. Because of something. At this moment, it was 12 o'clock noon, and the sky was bright. The streets in Yanjing City were clearly illuminated. The magical residential buildings stood tall, glowing with the black and hard color of steel texture, just like the city of science and technology in the movie is very magical. The steam pipes attached to the residential buildings are continuously transmitting heat, boiling, warming each residential building, and bringing heat to each residential building, which is the most important thing. The wind turbine, one of the most important urban projects, is spinning. Wind turbines were very important during the Ice Age. In this cruel weather, they were used for every residential building, factory, warehouse, ecological park, lighthouse, concentrating solar panel, and many other electric facilities. The constant flow of electric energy brought light to the east during the Ice Age, resisting and surviving. If there is no electric energy, the factory will be paralyzed. If there is no electric energy, all the electrical appliances in the residential buildings will be unavailable, and human life will be greatly troubled. Wait. If there is no electricity, night comes, and the continent will be dark forever at a glance. After disasters such as earthquakes, tsunamis, and extreme cold have passed, Yanjing has regained its vitality again. Among them, the seaweed on each residential building is dominated, and the green seaweed is developing vigorously. In order to adapt to the environment, the animals outside the city have undergone genetic changes, and strive to develop from their ancestors, and adapt to the environment. The seaweed in the city is also living to death, trying to adapt to the extreme cold, and trying to adapt to the surface. The sub-zero temperature, as the only green creature above the surface that can survive on its own without artificial assistance, seaweed, shows strong vitality. It's just a pity that seaweed alone is not enough. The streets in Yanjing City, and even the streets of every city, are bare except for buildings or buildings. I don't know when the beautiful scene of greenery and fragrant flowers and plants during the re-civilization period can be revived. When Midnight sat in the blizzard chariot, lost in thought, the driver of the blizzard chariot is merging with other blizzard chariots and heading for the Yanjing underground tunnel. Above the entrance, welcome to enter the Yanjing underground passage. The large characters after the later transformation welcome every blizzard chariot and iceberg giant that enter the underground passage. The construction of the underground glacier tunnel provides great convenience for the traffic in the east. After this point was opened from the underground glacier tunnel, it was verified that everyone gave the underground glacier tunnel 100 points. If the perfect score is 100 points, snow country trains alone are not enough. Snow country trains go around the city. Most of them are only responsible for transporting materials, and transporting materials to all parts of the country. It is more convenient than blizzard chariots, such as the cars of the civilization period, but under all premises, the transportation is needed, and the transportation is convenient, and the efficiency of the whole link has been improved. For ordinary residents, the arrival of the Ice Age has hindered the reunion between relatives and loved ones, and hindered the yearning for other cities. For construction workers, to go to each destination, sitting on a blizzard chariot may be the earliest a few hours, a few days and nights at the latest. Compared with a convenient transportation in the civilization period, this is really a torture. But now, you don't have to spend a few days and nights, and you won't be interrupting the thoughts of your loved ones, because of the long and hard journey. As long as you have reasonable needs, you can ride the blizzard chariot, and then appear in the underground glacier. In the tunnel, the distance between the city and the city is shortened, and everything from the civilization period of the past is gradually returning. Winning Midnight appeared in the underground tunnel again, and along with the live broadcast, a stunning scene broke into everyone's sight. The huge dome, shining with crystal-like light, is like a dream. Above it, the blizzard is falling, the cold wind is whistling, and the underground glacier tunnel puts an end to all of this. It is vast and clean. The lighthouse illuminates the tunnel to the extreme. Bright. It also provides a good sight for all blizzard tanks. It is too vast. It can accommodate the existence of a giant iceberg ship, hundreds of meters wide and hundreds of meters high. It can be called a super project that surpassed the civilization period. It was formed under such a difficult environment. People were shocked. The traffic lights in front stopped. Before and after the midnight win, the blizzard tanks stopped steadily. The engines were still roaring. When the green light arrived, everyone would set off again. Just parked at an intersection, a tunnel that can't see the end at a glance, blizzard chariots from all directions, carrying important materials on their bodies, from south to north, with the green light on. One by one blizzard chariots passed, everything, all proceeded in an orderly manner at this moment. The West is also watching the live broadcast, and this live broadcast has also been broadcast to the West. Everyone was shocked by Dongfang's operation again. The underground glacier tunnel opened on September 4th, the 5th year of the Ice Age, is still running. The tunnel that can't see the end is shining like a crystal. Above the ice, it is unobstructed, and a huge blizzard chariot. They continued to roar, transporting important supplies on their bodies, and after the green light turned on, booming, rows of tanks began to set off. Chapter 195. On January 1st, the 6th year of the Ice Age, on this special day, a great live broadcast is underway. On this special festival, the only remaining humans in the world are watching. Known as another super project in human history by the East, the underground glacier tunnel has successfully withstood the test after more than 3 months of successive tests. All underground passages are under opening. In the live broadcast, the tunnels extending in all directions completely recreated the old civilization. No, even surpassed the old civilization. In the eyes of all the people in the West, they are sour again. Western people believe that buildings like this, built using icebergs and glaciers, will collapse after a few earthquakes, and everything will cease to exist. The efforts of the Eastern people will return everything to dust and dirt. Dongfang. All efforts were wasted. After more than 3 months, blizzard chariots appeared in the underground tunnel, passing smoothly, making all of them shut their mouths after that. Some people had to admit that the Eastern Underground Glacier Tunnel was really spectacular, and it was too shocking. The Underground Glacier Tunnel has complete facilities. Not only with traffic lights, but also with a lighthouse, and to prevent blizzard tanks from breaking down, waiting for maintenance stations, and special materials for the blizzard tanks to provide kinetic energy, and so on. Everything is a perfect copy of the past 127 days of civilization. Traffic point in the 6th year of the Ice Age, when all the existing countries are struggling to survive. Dongfang does not know how to surpass it. First point. While the Eagle Nation was still rectifying its order, the Rose Nation worked hard to develop dungeons for food, and recast the construction. The East has already used everyone's frightening icebergs and glaciers for its own use. Above the surface under the extreme icy cold, mechas, blizzard chariots, and giant iceberg ships all go out together. Above the surface, the sound of rumbling resounds day and night, changing the colors of the world. In this extremely cold condition, the labor force across the country is braving the extreme temperature of -degrees and struggling hard. In this environment, a piece of ice falling can kill a person. If you stop for a while, you may stay on this continent forever. In addition, in some places, you need to use handheld tools to create hard ice. The body needs to do its best to eradicate and repeat the same action again and again, even as detailed as a screw, because it is inconvenient to wear thick winter clothes, so you need to take it off and only wear simple cold protection tools for installation. The conceivable difficulty and cruelty are difficult to move in the ice and snow, confronting extreme temperature, confronting engineering, and confronting people's spiritual will. It is too difficult, too difficult. Too difficult. The difficulty that can't be expressed in any language, but with the unity of the people of the East and the whole country, everything is over. Ying Ziyue was riding a blizzard chariot and driving in this wide passage. He looked around. Everything was perfect and stunning. The extensive traffic connects every city. There are as many passages as there are cities in the East. One city, none of them fell, crisscrossed and connected to each other. If there is no ground, and the camera looks down from a high altitude, you can see these long and wide oval passages. Each of them is smooth and flat, without any bumps. Even the walls are smooth and flat, and every place is very smooth, meticulous. The distance between the city and the city is too much to represent the length of the passage. This is a shocking place. For example, the distance between Yanjing and Beijing has reached nearly 1,000 miles. It was not a particularly long distance during the civilization period, but during the Ice Age, this distance was difficult to cross. The formation of the underground glacier tunnel shortens the distance between Yanjing and Beicheng, but it also means that the length of the underground passage must be at least a few hundred miles, or even thousands of miles, with a lighthouse every 50 miles and a traffic light every 20 miles, or 50 miles. Hundreds of miles are set with traffic lights, according to the distance between the cities, extending in all directions, crisscrossing, interconnecting, covering the underground passages under the glacier. The length varies, the shortest can be dozens of miles. It is a truly shocking place. Point driving all the way. I don't know that I have gone through a few traffic lights. Finally, the blizzard chariot drove out of the entrance of the passage. Guangcheng welcomes you. A few large characters and high suspension are very eye-catching. Point at this moment. It was only more than an hour, and the time pointed to 1:15. The first place that Ying Ziyue inspected was Bihei Warehouse and Bihei Ecological Park. Point the North Sea Warehouse contains all kinds of fish, and is the place with the highest oxygen concentration in the world. Therefore, this place gathers fish from all directions and even farther away. Time changes. All fish are constantly adapting to the environment. In the end, the fish that stayed have undergone extreme metamorphosis in all aspects, and everything is close to the fish ancestors of the Ice Age millions of years ago. Point after the triple disaster, the first rescued were Bihei Warehouse and Bihei Ecological Park. Point the ice-breaking aircraft carrier smashed the ice surface after the extreme cold swept, and Bihei Ecological Park quickly put in manpower to repair it. One is seafood, the other is fruits, vegetables, beef, sheep and pork. Everything is indispensable. Point. Only when they are full of nutrition can the people of the East have more energy to build better projects after rush repairs. The Bihei Warehouse and Bihei Ecological Park have not only recovered to their original level, but after more than 2 years of development, everything has grown stronger, with more types of fruits and vegetables, beef, sheep and pork more robust, and various fishes more delicious. The performance of the North was very good, and after winning the midnight inspection, he nodded. Point then the next location is the South. The South mainly focuses on production and steel. Ying Ziyue inspected one of the factories. Everything is going on perfectly, and the workers are also very passionate. Point then, when midnight came to the cross-sea bridge. After refurbishment, the cross-sea bridge is now restored to its original glory. Point the cold wind howled, the snow rustled down, falling on the cross-sea bridge, forming a layer of crystal clear ice crystals. From a distance, the bridge across the 3 seas is very spectacular. The end is buried in the snow and mist, very mysterious. Go. Next place. Behind the Win, a group of people continue to inspect, following a dozen blizzard chariots almost across the country. It was approaching the latter half of the night, and it was dark. Winning midnight came to the last place, in front of the iceberg barrier that was being built. Chapter 196. If the people in the East are building underground glacier passages to achieve freedom of passage and take a new step, then the construction of the iceberg barrier is a new step and a big step forward. The unpredictable iceberg barrier plan is built around the whole city. Comparable the steel wall of the mainland barrier means that the East will provide a new guarantee in the face of future disasters. In this era of disasters, a single guarantee may be able to save millions of people, and population is power. People are present, homes are present, and nations are present. Point this time, Ying Ziyue was changed to travel by airship. Point the military green airship, with the words Yan and Huan written on it, is domineering and elegant, and it is looming in the snow and fog. A military green airship is mixed in the airship carrying supplies and flies to the top of Beicheng, which is currently building an iceberg barrier. Beicheng, as a coastal city, is very famous. The development of the civilization period has made Beicheng famous among all cities. After the Ice Age, Beicheng, as a well-known city for a long time, is obliged to set an example for all coastal cities. The entire labor force has almost become an empty city, dedicated to the country's projects, and Beicheng has not only appeared many heroes during the civilization period, but also during the Ice Age. Beijing, as a coastal city, truly took the lead point after several hours of flying. The airship passed over several cities, and countless lighthouses illuminate the ground, bringing light to the city, and facilitating the construction process coming to the top of Beijing. At this moment, it was approaching the latter half of the night, but Beijing was brightly lit point inside the city. The lights are bright, and outside the city. The lights are bright point. People in the city are constantly transporting local resources out of the city. Outside the city, all the people in the east who are able to work are building a great and spectacular project, comparable to the construction of the steel wall of the mainland barrier. When it is really implemented, we will know how great it is, and how shocking it is. The 4,000-kilometer long continental barrier steel wall is enough to shock the entire east. The world, and it can be called the greatest project in human history. After the iceberg barrier is built in front of major cities, it is then connected to form a barrier that encompasses the entire city and the entire east. The continental barrier steel wall is, as long as it is, the 4,000 kilometers long glacier barrier will be indescribably shocking when it is completed. Point in the airship that I took in the night, I saw a brightly lit Beijing under the light of the lighthouse. In front of the Beijing, behind the 50-meter separation wall, a glacial wall about 100 meters high was rising from the ground. The sky and the earth change color, the cold wind screams, and the sub-zero temperature above the surface freezes everything. At this moment, under the 100-meter high glacier wall that is forming, countless people in the east are busy. Rumbler Blizzard's chariot transported materials with a loud roar, and kept shuttling, transporting to the side of the crane tower. The huge crane tower was working at the center of the glacier, and further up, completed by the measure, huge ice cubes were piled up one after another, and soon, a layer of ice crystals was cast on the surface of the measure point. Part of the glacier barrier has been completed, and the part that has been completed there is a magnificent glacier about 100 meters high, and about 10 kilometers long. Facing the frost point, Winning Midnight sat on the airship to witness this spectacular scene. Witnessing this project from his view on the airship, all this is really amazing. The cold wind mixed with the blizzard rustled down, and huge glaciers rose from the ground, blocking out all the foreseeable dangers. At this moment, the Western netizens who are watching this scene are boiling point when the camera was taken from far to near. The glacial barrier under construction was also more clearly passed to every Western netizen. Every Western netizen was so shocked by the scene that he couldn't speak. The former economist said, "The East is exhausted, and they are supporting it." Unexpectedly, there is a sound of echoing below. Yes, Dongfang is trying to support it. In order to take care of their own face, they exhaust all their resources. Tina, I don't know what is the use of Dongfang building so many projects. Sooner or later, they will disappear on the surface. Then all the projects will be buried on the surface with Dongfang. All their efforts will be wasted. Mark 0 Fine Flowers. Some people were amazed by the project built by the East, but they did not dare to speak up, because they supported their country more. To demean the East, especially in the live broadcast, they saw that the East was still just like the beginning of the Ice Age. In the residential building, surrounded by hot pot, and eating hot pot, they became more jealous, and gritted their teeth. The progress of the space station program, announced just 3 months ago, has excited the Western people. They believe that only their Eagle Nation is the last country on Earth, and will exist forever. Other countries, such as in the East, they will eventually be wiped out on the surface, and they will all perish. Now, when the West sees the scene before them, everyone's faces don't know why they are so hot. Roddy, minister of the Eagle country, was also watching the live broadcast. He did not speak. A new bottle of wine was opened on the table, and he was holding a wine glass in his hand, an empty wine glass. Dongfang, Minister Roddy said, there has been no follow-up for a long time. The wind is heavier and the snow is heavier. In the increasingly colder weather, the glacier barrier is forming at a speed visible to the naked eye. Not enough glaciers. It can be moved from other places, cut and piled up on the already formed ice wall, and the remaining part is completed by nature. In sub-zero weather, mixed with blizzards, it will not take long for all the ice blocks to be frozen together, forming a barrier. And above the surface, the most indispensable thing is glacial icebergs. with the efforts of all the people, with Beijing as the center. There are no icebergs and glaciers within 10 miles, and all icebergs and glaciers are used to build glacier barriers. After all, in the plan of the East, the glacier barrier will be another great super project point. Such a scene is not only happening in Beijing, but in inland cities such as Shacheng and Qingcheng. Iceberg barriers are forming everywhere, rising from the ground, about 100 meters high, unprecedented in history, and extremely shocking point. This scene will also be eternal forever, and should be recorded in the annals of human history. On January 1st, the 6th year of the Ice Age, another super project will be born in the live broadcast in the East. Death if you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197. On March 11th, the 6th year of the Ice Age, the construction of the glacier barrier started. On September 11th, the 5th year of the Ice Age, and half a year past. In the past 6 months, the labor force across the country has been invested in vigorous construction projects in front of each city. The sound of booming continued for half a year in the city of Yanjing, above the 100-meter high wall, in the meteorological observation room. In front of the wide temperature isolated window, a straight back figure is facing the window. His eyes are looking outside from the window, and a white snow mist blows his face. Then, as the sky gradually brightened, the whole world gradually became clear. In the middle of the night, I saw that the icebergs and glaciers that originally stood above the surface disappeared. Above the surface, you can see without a glance. Instead, a barrier of about 100 meters high is gradually forming, encircling the 140. Built in Yanjing, blizzard chariots, mechas, cranes, etc. are all busy. This scene is spectacular and stunning. Report team leader. Suddenly, a voice rang from behind, and Zhao Guofeng opened the door of the weather observation room, and said behind him. Ying Ziyue attracted his thoughts. With a gentle expression, "What's the matter?" Zhao Guofeng often said, "The Rose Kingdom shows good wishes to us. The thing is like this. When every remaining country is going all out for survival, the Eagle state-owned space station has invested all resources. As the process progresses, everything is developing in a good direction. The country can be considered a retreat, and the only remaining countries, such as the Rose Country, all their resources have been invested in the dungeon. As they think the perfect dungeon has developed over time, all aspects have been severely affected. Now, they seem to be unable to bear it, especially when they witnessed one project after another in the East standing on the ground. The resources of the East seem to be inexhaustible. The Rose Country took the initiative to show favor to the East. Hope to cooperate with the East. Then, the boss sent Zhao Guofeng to ask about Win Midnight's opinions, because this is a cooperation in a disaster period, and Win Midnight is undoubtedly the one who has the most say. Ying Ziyue's gaze fell on Zhao Guofeng. After he and Zhao Guofeng looked at each other for a few seconds, he said, "I think I have expressed my meaning very clearly." Long before the disaster began, Win Midnight had clearly expressed what he meant. In the past few years of the Ice Age, the same was true. Even in the 6th year of the Ice Age. When Midnight said that he has no tendency to be abused. When the West is ridiculing the most, he turned his head and showed them good. They accepted it regardless of the previous suspicion. I'm sorry, when Midnight has a heart to be measured by a big country, but it doesn't mean that he also has such a big heart for other countries. Winning Midnight means such a meaning. The rest is left to the boss to decide. No matter what decision is made, there is no opinion about Winning Midnight. Minister Dong Fang has refused our cooperation. At this moment, in a cold-proof meeting room in the underground city, the secretary in charge of communication and information said. The minister of the Rose Country was replaced again. The former minister was accidentally hit by a falling boulder because of a small earthquake while inspecting the compassionate people, so the minister of the Rose Country was replaced again. Since Minister Rose Country entered the Ice Age, he has changed 2 ministers, all of which were caused by disasters. With the third minister taking office, the situation has become more and more serious. The third minister realized that the situation in front of him was no longer suitable for fighting alone, so the minister of Rose Country showed his favor to the East. Today, the East has lived on the surface for 6 years, with the birth of one super project after another, showing their strength and inexhaustible resources to the world. Rose Country decided to put aside its prejudice against the East, thinking we must partner with the East and become a strategic partner who knows. Dongfang refused. The new minister of Rose Country is full of confidence. After all, he personally sent a message to the Oriental boss and promised to share their dungeon technology with the East after reaching a cooperation. Who knows? The East refused. Minister Rose Country repeatedly confirmed the authenticity of the news and then scolded. The East is really ignorant of good or bad. East. Minister Rose Country's chest ups and downs, unable to say a word for a long time. In the end, Minister Rose Country said, the East will pay for their conceit. Come here, call me Minister of the Eagle Country. On March 15th, the 6th year of the Ice Age, a piece of news appeared on YouTube, Twitter, and other hot searches. The hot search title is "The Western Rose Country and the Eagle Country have reached a cooperation and become a strategic partner. They will go out with the goal of the survival of all mankind." After this news was searched hotly, it caused a reaction from the Western people in an instant. There are opposition and support. The voice of support said, "At this critical moment, all human beings in the West should unite to deal with the immediate disaster. Only by uniting can we overcome the disaster." Yes, the two big countries have united together, and during this Ice Age, they will support each other and respond together. I support cooperation. I heard that the Eagle Nation's space station program is already underway and the situation is very good. I'm very looking forward to the day when I can board the space station. Yes, we will be the first residents on the space station by then. Some people from the Rose Nation and the Eagle Nation spoke separately. I heard that our country has signed an unfair treaty with the Eagle Nation. When did our Rose Nation be so downhearted? Yes, I also heard about it. I don't know what an unfair treaty is. Isn't it worse at this critical moment? Heh. Rose Country is planning to share a piece of the pie with us. Rose Country, fuck off. In any case, there are more supportive voices than oppositional voices. The two developed countries in the civilized period formally reached a cooperative strategic relationship on March 15th to contribute their own contributions to the next space station program. Resource. Koasuki, which originally cooperated with the Eagle Nation, is left with only one island that is too small to be smaller. The others are completely wiped out in the disaster and will disappear completely after experiencing an earthquake. In the space station that cooperated with the Eagle Nation plan, it has no say. In addition to the cooperation between the Rose Country and the Eagle Country, which has caused huge discussions in the West, at the same time, the news that the Rose Country and the East have been tragically rejected has also been on the second hot search. The Rose Country news added fuel and jealousy, portraying itself as a victim, arousing anger from Western netizens. Chapter 198. The East is tying itself into a cocoon. At this time, the only remaining countries in the world should unite and not fight alone. Yes, Dongfang is trying to restrain itself. Dongfang is too conceited. There is an old saying in the East that everyone gathers firewood and the flames are high. In such a disaster period, only the world can unite to overcome the difficulties. Western netizens were scolding, and the news spread to the East. Netizens on the East were very angry. Western behavior made them feel what it means to jump over the wall. Refusal to cooperate is considered arrogant. Be a cocoon. Bah. It's so shameless. Eastern netizens were filled with indignation and wanted to reply back, but in a blink of an eye, the most useless thing is scrolling the keyboard, especially in the Ice Age. Instead of worrying about it, it is better to put more power into the construction of the project. The Eastern project has come to witness which country can really have the last laugh. Therefore, the East is still working quietly for the project, while the West is still rolling the keyboard. They have invested more manpower and resources. From the beginning to the end, the entire part of 02 is continuing to supply and continue. Right. After another month, all the glacier barriers in front of the cities were completed. After a total of 7 months, and undergoing various tests, The extreme temperature of -180 degrees above the ground freezes everything. The world changes color, and the cold wind screams. Under such circumstances, the iceberg barrier in front of every city has been constructed, and now, there is still the last step, that is to connect all the iceberg barriers that have been completed, and all the iceberg barriers in front of the city, to form a real iceberg barrier, encompassing the entire east, at an altitude of tens of thousands of miles. The east slowly revolves around the earth. At this moment, viewing the face of the earth from the eastern satellite, the whole earth is still white, all white, covering the whole earth. The temperature of the southern and northern glaciers has reached more than 200 degrees below zero, and no one has stepped in. The thickness of the ice has reached an average of 4,800 meters, which has become a real forbidden zone for mankind. Satellite cameras swept over the continents that once existed in developed countries. Buildings in various civilizations have been covered by ice and snow. Only a small part of them is still exposed and completely submerged. It is only a matter of time. Once the land of the desert was hit by the tsunami, it was replaced by an ocean, but after the extreme cold swept it, it is now completely sealed by ice, the endless ice surface. I don't know where the end is, and on an ice surface that no one noticed, there was a click, and several thick cracks instantly cracked, and spread to the surroundings under the ice. The sea was surging, which seemed like an omen. The camera turns to the east, the only country still standing on the surface at -180 degrees. The 4,000-mile steel wall was built around the entire continent. The camera zoomed in. The dark texture, standing high on the ground, like giant soldiers guarding the continent. Then there is the separation wall of coastal cities, which was built to stop that tsunami. It still stands above the surface. The sea crossing bridge is magnificent. I don't know how many lighthouses are scattered on the mainland. When darkness comes, all the lighthouses will be there. Start at the same time. And now on the surface, there is another existence that cannot be ignored. Iceberg barriers made of glacial icebergs rise from the ground one after another at a height of about 100 meters in the coastal cities of Beicheng, Shacheng, Qingcheng, the inland city of Yanjing, and other cities. In front of all the cities, there are glacial barriers that were built in 7 months viewed from the satellite. These glacier barriers are amazing. The amazing nature and the amazing made by the people of the east are higher than the steel wall of the mainland barrier. When humans stand in front of the glacier barrier, they will find that they are in the end. How small. The height of 100 meters is about 34 floors. When people stand underneath, it is really too small, looking up like an ant. The glacier stands high in the snow and mist. Looking around, the endless stretch of glacier stands on this land. Only when you really show up in front of the glacier barrier can you feel what is majestic and what is magnificent. In the east, I don't know how many such scenes are there. When everyone stood in front of the eastern barrier that they had built over the past 7 months, they couldn't help feeling from the bottom of their hearts what is the awe from nature. And now, through themselves, they have defeated nature's in awe. It was also Chief Engineer Zhao Gang. After he was responsible for the construction of the underground passage, he did not take a day off, and then devoted himself to the construction of the glacier barrier. He was wearing a thick winter suit and an oxygen mask. In front of the iceberg barrier, his body was very small. At this moment, he looked at this scene and his eyes were all amazing. Behind him, blizzard chariots, cranes, mechas, etc. waited long ago and made a loud noise. In the sky, countless airships were also waiting at the same time, and the words Yan and Huan were looming in the color of army green. Just the last step. Just the last step. The entire glacier barrier was completed, and another super project in the east was formed. Just the last step. Chief Engineer Zhao Gang looked around for a week. His gaze was like electricity, and said, "Everyone, the 7-month project is just the last step, and we can go home, go home, go home, go home." There were oars around, mixed in the cold wind, flying farther and farther. So, everyone, hold on. In any case, we have to give this answer sheet to the country perfectly. Everyone, hold on for the last time. Back to the chief engineer. "We will definitely hand this answer sheet to the country perfectly," someone yelled in front. "It is good." Chief Engineer Zhao Gang looked excited. Although he was in the extreme cold, his heart was extremely hot, and his body was indescribably clean. So from Nowstedt, with Zhao Gang's order, a shocking scene happened. The airship floating above the glacier is now 200 meters away from the ground, which is already the lowest distance. With Zhao Gang's order, the airship was launched and poured down from the airship. A stream of special materials fell from the sky, pour at the junction of each barrier, connecting each barrier. This scene is really shocking, falling from the sky, like a galaxy, floating in the sky, looking from an altitude of several kilometers. The indescribable sense of science and technology shines with light. Chapter 199. On the last day of April 30th, the 6th year of the Ice Age, everyone got up early, tidied up, and the spirit of dressing up was waiting for someone or someone to return. At this moment, the underground passage was extremely lively, and the huge iceberg ship was rumbling. The road opened in front, followed by rows of blizzard chariots, and the end could not be seen at a glance. After a long walkway, the dome is glowing with ice crystals, and the walls on both sides are glowing. Under the light of the lighthouse, it is like entering the kingdom of dreams. Even if you don't know how many such walkways you pass, you can't hide it. Amazing. I feel amazing every second. On the eastern fence, someone stood against the snow, looking forward to it, staring at the exit of the underground tunnel. Someone wore thick winter clothes, looking through the clouds and mist, looking into the distance. Some people ran out of the city, waiting in the sub-zero extreme cold weather, oncoming, frostbiting, and could not stop a waiting heart. In this kind of weather, every minute is suffering. Finally, at 13:50 p.m. on April 30th, among the clouds and fog, small black spots appeared in the line of sight. Above the surface, the cold wind roared, the blizzard rustled down, and a huge giant ship appeared. Then, one by one, small black spots drove out of the underground tunnel. As time passed by, they got closer and closer, and the army green airship flew in mid-air, with the words Yan and Huan written on it, looming on the surface, behind the huge ship, followed by blizzard chariots, rumbling, making a loud noise. On the day of April 30th, the entire labor force in the east who had been abroad for nearly 8 months finally home. On May 1st, the 6th year of the Ice Age, during the civilization period, it was once a festival, and shared by working people all over the world. It is a national festival in more than 80 countries in the world. It is for commemoration, recognition, etc. The meaning is that May 1st is designated as Labor Day. On this day, most positions will have a few days of vacation and a few days of rest. During these few days, most people choose to go out and have fun with their families. With the arrival of the Ice Age, almost everyone has forgotten about this holiday. Even if someone wants to take a break, the cruel environment does not allow it. Now everyone has completed a great project before May 1st and can rest openly. On May 1st, it is not only a festival in the civilization period, but also as a festival in the Ice Age. But it is not Labor Day, but the day when a new project is born. The project was officially completed on April 30th, the 6th year of the Ice Age, and officially opened on May 1st. It was shown to everyone in the live broadcast of the whole East, and appeared in front of all Western people in the form of broadcast. Early in the morning, the sound of rummaging through cabinets came from the bedroom that won the midnight. He came out only after Ying Mu made a meal. Ying's mother's eyes lit up. Winning Midnight in a hidden blue suit was very handsome. Her body was filled with a mature and stable breath, which made Ying's mother have the illusion that my family had just grown into a child. No, it should be said that it was as early as the Ice Age. When he arrived, his son had grown up. Now, he is not only able to act alone, but also shoulders the responsibility of the entire great country on his shoulders. Ying Ziyue knows that, even if he is handsome enough to pack himself up, but wearing a cold-proof suit and wearing an oxygen mask, he can't see anything inside, but he feels that he is responsible for himself. Occasion is also a basic respect for all Eastern people. After eating slowly, I cleaned up the dishes and chopsticks with Ying mother, then put on winter clothes and oxygen mask, and then went out. After winning Midnight. As soon as I left the house, a renewed street rushed towards my face, and the red flag car had been waiting at the door long ago. After the 2 rows of soldiers greeted the car with a win Midnight, then boom. The car started, drove out of the city of Yanjing, and drove to the underground glacier tunnel. The live broadcast will officially start at 12 o'clock on May 1st. All the people in the East are sitting in front of the TV, in front of the computer, waiting long ago. In the next live broadcast, no matter what TV program it is, it will all point to the only seen point as the last second of the countdown ended. A figure slowly appeared in front of everyone. You hear in the cold wind howling, the blizzard rustling down, and the cruel environment. A figure appeared in the ice and snow point as he wears a thick cold mask. The camera shakes from time to time, so everyone can't tell who he is for the time being. Until the other party spoke, all the people in the East came to their senses, and then all became excited. A clear voice rang, "I win midnight. It's the leader of Ying, the guardian of the great country." Someone shouted in a room in a residential building in Ying City. Win midnight. The head of the special research team, his name, such as La Iguana, and his appearance, are deeply imprinted in everyone's mind. What's more important is that he is very young. Only 26 years old, full of vigor and unparalleled future. Winning the name of the midnight. The Western high-level people who are watching at this moment are all like treacherous. According to the information obtained after investigation, almost all the projects in the East are from the hands of this young man. This is really shocking. The steel wall of the mainland barrier, the sea crossing bridge, etc. are all produced by this young man. It is impossible to imagine. It would be great if they had such talents in the West. No, as the West is a developed country with abundant talents, there is no shortage of talents in this field. Get Zao. Some people in the West comfort themselves, however, because when Midnight hardly appeared in front of the public, there are too few photos of him. Western senior officials can only obtain a back view and a side view of Win Midnight. On May 1st, all Westerners will remember once again that there is an Easterner named Win Midnight in the East. In front of Win Midnight, countless shots were aimed at him from all angles. The reporters after these scenes were all very excited. They were proud of being able to interview until Win Midnight. Behind them, where the camera did not see. It was an amazing scene, and another super project was born. Everyone, I won the midnight. Next, I will lead you to experience the new project in the East, a glacial barrier comparable to the steel wall of the mainland. Chapter 200. On May 1st, the 6th year of the Ice Age, everyone will remember this day forever, because it not only exists as a festival in the civilization period, but also a day when the guardians of the great country lead everyone to experience the great country project with their own eyes. On this day, everyone stopped their work, stopped resting, and stopped everything. Together with the young guardian of the big country, winning the midnight, we witnessed the formation of the super project. The sky is bright, the light during the Ice Age is precious, and everyone is greedily enjoying the light. The cold wind howled and roared, resounding in this world. The weather of -180 degrees on the surface freezes everything, and it is bitterly cold. At this moment, in a certain location in the eastern continent, it was very hot. Crowds of reporters, the chief engineer and engineer in charge of the Glacier Barrier project, and worker representatives witnessed it with their own eyes, and experienced the final scene of the super project together. In fact, the Glacier Barrier has been completed, but in order to commemorate this project, that is comparable to the steel wall of the mainland barrier, there is still a place at the connection point of the Glacier Barrier. Ying Ziyue personally directs it to formally make this wall of steel comparable to the mainland barrier. Drop the final completion mark. It's no wonder that reporters, chief engineers, and worker representatives are very excited to be with the guardians of the great powers in person. As Ying Ziyue walked around, the whole camera followed him. Slowly, a stunning and shocking scene appeared in front of everyone. The 100-meter high glacier barrier slowly appeared in front of everyone. Standing under the glacier, people were as small as an ant. The hard ice wall is as smooth as the environment under the attack of cold wind and cold air. Under the operation of various machines, only special machines can be used to leave marks on the ice wall. However, it will soon be affected by the cold wind and cold air. Invade, erase all traces. Massive, majestic, magnificent, and stunning. Faced with this scene, everyone has only these adjectives in their minds. All people watching on the internet cannot describe this scene in any words, let alone standing in front of the glacier barrier at this moment. Everyone, even if it is to win midnight, experience the test of life and death before rebirth. and experience the birth of super engineering after rebirth. It cannot conceal the surging heart at this moment. Then he placed his hand on the glacier barrier, and a biting coldness immediately came from his palm, and he felt it with his heart to win the midnight, and a depression came with heavy weight on the top of his head. At this moment, the world is quiet. The cold wind howled. The sound of the blizzard landing could not be heard. Bang bang bang. Just the sound of the heart beating enthusiastically. Bang bang bang. Next second. Start. Without too much nonsense. When Midnight uses a walkie-talkie made of special materials to talk. As the voice of winning the midnight fell, the airship flying above began to dump special materials to connect the last part. As long as the last part is connected, the glacier barrier is completely completed. This last special situation was handed over to a special person to direct it, as if it were a kind of respect. Eastern people watching live webcasts and broadcasts, as well as Western people, could not help but hold their breath. Under the omnidirectional lens, everyone can see that the dumped material is like a Milky Way, falling from the sky, like a waterfall, flying straight down, accurately falling to the last part, and then, under the lens, it freezes quickly as visible to the naked eye. Quickly connect the two barriers. The glacier barrier is completely formed. West at the moment. Dongfang boarded the hot search before, because it refused the cooperation of the Rose Country. The curse continued for a long time, and then it calmed down. On this day, Dongfang boarded the hot search again. How long can the hot search named Dongfang Glacier project last? One of the most discussed is a recent new engineering glacier barrier. Using glaciers as a barrier, is the East crazy, right? Tina, the East is absolutely crazy. The glacier serves as a barrier, and it quickly collapsed. It can't withstand any impact at all. Mark, yes, Dongfang is absolutely useless. Loki, let us witness the scene of the collapse of the Eastern project. It will be a joke forever. Dex. The West is gloating. They feel that the East is doing nothing. Even if they see the formation of the glacier barrier with their own eyes, they can't hide their gloat and ridicule. It was not until May 1st that the glacier barrier was once again presented to Westerners through live broadcast and broadcast. When Westerners re-examined the new super project in the East again, everyone was silent. Especially in the final construction steps, most people fell into silence. The West will never admit how spectacular and stunning this scene of the East is. Roddy, the minister of the Eagle Country, was also watching the live broadcast of the East. When he saw the airship flying over the glacier in the East, he guessed what the East was going to do next. As expected, he dumped special materials from the airship to shield the East. The shock brought by the connection, as if opening a new world, Roddy fell into silence. Instead, Roddy seemed to be stimulated and ordered the space station program to be urged to invest all resources in the space station program at all costs. Roddy has never been so urgent before, hoping to exaggerate in front of Dongfang. In addition, Roddy's second order is to order people to continue to focus on Dongfang's every move. Roddy has a strange feeling in his heart. It feels like Dongfang can predict what disaster will happen next. Everyone, I won the midnight. Next, I will lead you to experience the new project in the East, a glacial barrier comparable to the steel wall of the mainland, with the completion of the final scene. Ying Ziyue said. What then appeared in the camera was an epic scene. With winning Midnight from the blizzard chariot and boarding the airship, the camera followed the entire eastern continent. A wall of steel comparable to the continental barrier appeared in front of all the people in the East. The project, which took nearly 8 months to complete, was presented with a perfect answer sheet in front of the people all over the country. I believe everyone will never forget this day. The glacial barrier standing on the continent, inserted into the sky, is built around each city, guarding this continent, and becoming another new guarantee for the East during the Ice Age. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.